Chapter 1552. After the Jialan monarch arrived at the city closest to the mine, he discovered that this city was attacked. The teleportation array leading to the Emperor City was destroyed. Clearly, this was a premeditated act of plundering. The first time the Jialan monarch plundered an ordinary mine, it was actually just a small matter. After 2 to 3 years, this was the true meaning of a grand robbery. As expected of the Knight Empyrean, the Jialan monarch had a heavy expression on his face. He knew that this time around, he would surely be under immense pressure from the Lifefire Palace. As for Yi Qinyu and the others, they continued on their journey. Just like before, there were many people silently leaving, not communicating with each other. Their tacit understanding was terrifying. Yi Qinyu, Qin Wentian and the others returned to the Thousand Feathers Palace in Heavenly City. Qin Wentian, you actually didn't do your best to kill your enemies. You clearly have the ability to kill initial stage immortal emperors. Why didn't you act earlier? After returning to the inner palace, Qin Wentian reverted to his original appearance. The barbarian emperor berated him. Qin Wentian coldly glanced at him. I still want to ask you, what is the barbarian emperor's purpose? You clearly know that she is my senior apprentice sister. Why did you intentionally send her to fight against me? If it wasn't for me being held back, I would naturally be able to kill a few more people. What do you mean by this? Palace Mistress, Senior Apprentice Sister Qin Wentian is someone from the Lifefire Palace. Her heart would no longer be there sooner or later. The barbarian emperor coldly snorted as he stared at Yi Qinyu. Man, since I dared to use him, I naturally have considered this. In addition, Qin Wentian has already fought together with us, and even killed an immortal emperor. What problem can there be? Yi Qinyu calmly spoke. Man, go ahead. After we obtain the mine, I will forge an even better emperor-ranked weapon for you. Many thanks, Palace Mistress. The barbarian emperor clasped his hands. He coldly glanced at Qin Wentian before retreating. Yi Qinyu and Qin Wentian then returned to her palace. After all, Qin Wentian was staying there. Within the palace, Qin Wentian stared at Yi Qinyu. Palace Mistress, what is the purpose of this robbery? Of course, he noticed that the plunder this time was unusual, and he couldn't help but ask. Yi Qinyu's earlier solemn expression vanished, revealing her charming and flirtatious look. She didn't reply to Qin Wentian. Her soul-stirring eyes stared at Qin Wentian with a smile. Your little lover is truly very beautiful and strong. So it turns out that you like cold beauties. Qin Wentian was stunned and a little speechless. However, he didn't explain to this demoness. Don't worry. Although we didn't gain anything from our frontal attack, we won't have to worry about not having enough resources to cultivate for 100 years. Yi Qinyu smiled. There are 3 main mines under the Jialan monarch's jurisdiction. They are the Violet Cloud Mine, Quicksand Mine, and Heavenly Meteorite Mine. When we attacked the Violet Cloud Mine, the Quicksand Mine and Heavenly Meteorite Mine were also plundered. Tell me, if an immortal emperor brought a group of immortal kings to kill their way into the mines, how many mines would they be able to bring out? Qin Wentian stared at the smile on Yi Qinyu's face as his heart involuntarily trembled. This time around, the purpose of the robbery was actually to cover for the other 2 mines. Not only that, they even killed their way into the mines. This was simply too audacious. Qin Wentian bitterly smiled. Bandits. This seductive beauty before him was a supreme bandit. Could it be that he had boarded the pirate ship? Staring at the bitter expression on Qin Wentian's face, Yi Qinyu winked at him and giggled. Even if you want to leave now, you won't be able to. Are you regretting now? Do you want me to order my men to forge 2 emperor-ranked weapons for you? You can tell me what weapon you want. Qin Wentian bitterly smiled and shook his head. Yi Qinyu blinked her eyes and smiled. Could it be that you are angry because I didn't tell you about the operation in advance? I don't dare to. Qin Wentian continued to shake his head. This was his first time participating in an operation. It was only normal that Yi Qinyu didn't tell him about it. Are you really angry? Could it be that you want me to devote my life to you? If you want it, you can just say it. Maybe I will agree to it. Yi Qinyu smiled. Her gaze caused Qin Wentian's resistance to grow weaker and weaker. Upon seeing Yi Qinyu walking over, Qin Wentian was on the verge of tears. "Palace mistress, I'm going to cultivate." As he spoke, he fled, running towards the cultivation platform. "If you like cold beauties, I can pretend to be colder as well." Yi Qinyu stared at the fleeing Qin Wentian as she called out. Qin Wentian staggered and almost fell to the ground. Did he have to do this? Would he still be able to cultivate properly in the future? The quicksand mine and heavenly meteorite mine were plundered. The guardians of the two mines were almost completely wiped out. The bandits invaded the two mines at the same time and plundered everything in a frenzy. As the Jialan monarch who was in charge of the mines, he actually didn't appear in time. He only arrived after the mines were plundered. By then, the bandits had already vanished without a trace, leaving behind a scene of chaos. This matter caused quite a huge commotion in the Lifefire Palace. The Lifefire Empyrean was enraged and sent people to investigate. The Jialan monarch then headed to the Lifefire Palace to beg for forgiveness. In the Lifefire Palace, there were several monarchs who were on bad terms with the Jialan monarch, who accused the Jialan monarch of not doing his job well. They begged the Lifefire Empyrean to remove the Jialan monarch from his position, causing the Jialan monarch to feel extremely embarrassed. In the end, the Lifefire Empyrean still gave him a chance to investigate this matter. He had to find the bandits no matter what. Only then did this matter come to an end. The Jialan monarch started his investigation. However, the other party didn't leave any clues for him. In addition, how would the bandits who plundered the two mines still take the initiative to appear? It was highly probable that they wouldn't appear again for a very long period of time. In fact, they might even vanish without a trace, never to appear again. Just like what the Jialan monarch predicted, after this incident, it was indeed impossible for Yi Qinyu to act again within a short period of time. As for Qin Wentian, he was preparing to head to the Jialan Emperor city. After Yi Qinyu learned of this, she actually wanted to accompany him. Qin Wentian was speechless and decisively rejected, not allowing Yi Qinyu to go. What a joke! Wouldn't it be too conspicuous for an immortal emperor-ranked beauty to follow him? Could it be that this woman didn't know who she was? She was the daughter of the Knight Empyrean, the leader of the bandits. She even wanted to head to the Jialan Emperor city. What a crazy woman. Although Qin Wentian firmly rejected, his rejection was useless. Hence today, a strange duo appeared in the Jialan Emperor city. A young man walked in the city, exuding an extraordinary aura. This was naturally none other than Qin Wentian, who had changed his appearance. Even so, he still exuded an air of elegance. But even so, the passers-by only casually glanced at him and treated him like air. Because the person beside him was simply too eye-catching. Today, Yi Qinyu was wearing a long dress with the tail of a phoenix, accentuating her sexy figure to perfection. Her radiant and beautiful countenance, her fair skin, her alluring figure, and her snow-white neck were all the more soul-stirring. What was even more alluring was the cut of her dress, revealing her long and slender legs. Her entire body exuded a mesmerizing aura. However, no one dared to antagonize her. When the passers-by glanced at her, they all discovered that her aura was deep and unfathomable. Her cultivation base was surely extremely high. However, such a flawless and sexy beauty was actually hugging that young man with one arm, her charming eyes gleaming with the light of happiness. But the strange thing was that the young man had a cold expression on his face the entire way, as though he wanted to beat someone up. This scene was simply too unharmonious. This made many people want to rush out and beat up Qin Wentian before throwing him to the side to replace him. They silently cursed at this bastard in their hearts. Such a blessing, yet he didn't know how to enjoy it, and even had a cold expression on his face? What did he mean? He actually didn't know how to have tender and protective feelings for the fairer sex? It was as though he had wronged him. What a bastard. Qin Wentian truly wanted to beat someone up. It was one thing for this vixen to come, but couldn't she be more low profile? What was the point of her dressing so sexily? Did she feel that she couldn't attract the attention of others? Being a bandit to such an extent, Qin Wentian felt like crying. He initially wanted to come here in a low-profile manner. But now things were different. Everywhere they passed by, everyone would notice them. Can you let go? Qin Wentian gritted his teeth as he transmitted his voice. He could feel the sensation on his arm. Right now he was in great pain, extremely great pain. Am I not beautiful? Yi Qinyu glanced at Qin Wentian with a wronged expression. That gaze of hers could instantly cause the hearts of others to soften. It wasn't that she wasn't beautiful, she was simply too beautiful. Qin Wentian completely gave up when he saw the look in her eyes. He knew that it was useless. Whatever this vixen wanted to do, he wouldn't be able to stop her. Under the night sky, the scenery on the lake was incomparably beautiful. The dragon boats and pleasure boats could be seen, the sounds of zither melodies could be heard, and the pavilions on the lake were filled with beauties dancing. Boating on the lake was indeed a very relaxing thing. Qin Wentian sat on one of the dragon boats. His immortal sense spread out in all directions. Beside him, Yi Qinyu was lying down with her head resting on his thighs. Her figure was as perfect as a water snake, and was extremely alluring. This caused many dragon boats to gather around Qin Wentian. Although he didn't dare to disturb them, it wouldn't be a problem for him to take a look, right? Qin Wentian's peak stage immortal king aura gushed forth, engulfing the surroundings. He coldly spoke, "Scram." A moment later, the dragon boats in the surroundings dispersed. Upon seeing this scene, Yi Qinyu's beautiful eyes flashed with a bright light. She giggled. You wouldn't be jealous seeing so many people looking at me, right? Qin Wentian gritted his teeth and glanced at the supreme beauty beside him. For some reason, when he saw so many people paying attention to Yi Qinyu, although he wasn't jealous, he did feel a little uncomfortable. Maybe this was the nature of men. Why don't you pursue me? Maybe in the future, I will only let you look at me alone. You can look at me however you want. Yi Qinyu smiled charmingly. Her long hair cascaded down the deck. That mesmerizing countenance of hers was even more beautiful compared to the moonlight. Palace mistress, please spare me. Qin Wentian transmitted his voiceover. If this continued, he would surely die. At this moment, a strand of immortal sense collided with Qin Wentian's. After that, Qin Wentian felt a chill in his body. His eyes abruptly opened as he controlled the dragon boat, and flew towards a certain direction. On a boat far away, there was an icy beauty standing there. Under the moonlight, she was like a goddess and similarly attracted the gazes of many. However, the eyes of this icy beauty were coldly staring at Qin Wentian and Yi Qinyu. Yi Qinyu seemed to have sensed something. She smiled lightly, and actually placed her head on Qin Wentian's thigh. Qin Wentian's gaze instantly turned sluggish. Chapter 1553. This. Qin Wentian lowered his head and stared at the supreme beauty lying on his lap. He only saw Yi Qinyu smiling as she stared at the incoming dragon boat, smiling at the icy goddess on the boat. That smile, no matter how Qin Wentian looked at it, contained a hint of provocation. He couldn't help but feel a headache. This woman had truly gone crazy. Cold expression on Princess Kitamura's face was as cold as ever. She naturally saw Yi Qinyu staring at her. She stared at Yi Qinyu, her charming countenance and perfect figure laid there beside Qin Wentian. Her exquisite curves were simply too alluring. Even as a woman, she could feel her charm, let alone Qin Wentian who was a man. Inclining her head slightly, her cold gaze was akin to the cold wind, exceptionally piercing. Qin Wentian bitterly smiled. Although he didn't have any relationship with Princess Kitamura, and there was no need for him to explain anything, he still felt that this was somewhat absurd. This demoness' actions were completely illogical. This place was the emperor city of the Jialan Monarch. Yet she came here dressed in such a seductive manner, completely unafraid of attracting attention. One simply couldn't imagine what she would do. You invited me here just to see this scene? A cold voice rang out in Qin Wentian's mind. This was naturally Princess Kitamura's voice. Yu Huang, if I say this demoness intentionally acted this way after seeing you, would you believe me? Qin Wentian bitterly smiled as he replied, similarly transmitting his voiceover. It doesn't matter if I believe you or not, we have no relationship at all. If there's nothing else, I will leave first. Now that you are a bandit, it's best if you don't stay in the Emperor City any longer. Princess Kitamura's voice was as cold as ever, as though she wanted to push people 1,000 miles away. Qin Wentian didn't know whether to laugh or cry. He weakly spoke. Are you jealous? Princess Kitamura's beautiful eyes flashed. Her cold yet bright eyes stared at Qin Wentian. With a wave of her hand, the dragon boat directly turned around, preparing to leave. Just kidding. Qin Wentian blushed with shame. He steered the dragon boat forward at high speed, and soon caught up with Princess Kitamura's dragon boat. However, he did not go over to her. Instead, he just kept abreast of her dragon boat. You're ignoring me after seeing your lover? Yi Qinyu giggled, her words causing Qin Wentian to stare at her in astonishment. She actually didn't transmit her voice and spoke directly. You're crazy. Qin Wentian lowered his head and looked at her. Didn't she know that if someone saw it, it would cause suspicion? Sigh, looks like I'm not welcome here. Yi Qinyu bitterly sighed. After that, she sat up and spoke. All right then, I'll leave the time to you guys. I'm going to be lonely by myself. After speaking, her silhouette flashed as she stepped on the lake, heading towards a pavilion. There was a fairy dancing there, exuding incomparable beauty. Yi Qinyu actually impolitely descended from the sky. She took off her shoes, revealing her snow-white feet. Her long and slender legs slowly descended from the air as her dress fluttered in the wind. Under the illumination of the moonlight, she truly resembled a celestial maiden descending from the moon, even more beautiful than a painting. What a beautiful woman! In just an instant, the tourists on the lake all turned their gazes over, attracting the attention of many. She's a heaven-defying beauty. Everyone stared at her beautiful countenance, sexy figure, snow-white skin, and long and slender legs. They were instantly unable to shift their gazes away. Qin Wentian was stunned once more, staring dumbfoundedly at this scene. He truly regretted it. He shouldn't have come together with her. Your luck with women isn't bad at all. There are two beauties in the Azure Mystic Immortal Realms who are deeply in love with you. After you came to the Supreme Ancient Immortal Realms, you actually have such a beauty accompanying you. Princess Kitamura coldly spoke. Although she was praising Qin Wentian for his luck with women, everyone could hear the sarcasm in her tone. Yu Huang, during these years, I've always been worried about your safety. Have you been well? Qin Wentian knew that he wouldn't be able to explain himself, hence, he didn't bother to. Is that so? With such a beauty accompanying you, and a beauty at the Immortal Emperor realm, you can even do so well as a bandit. Why would you still think of me? Princess Kitamura coldly spoke. Qin Wentian glanced at Princess Kitamura, only to see that her gaze was fixed on Yi Qinyu. She basically wasn't looking at him. Yi Qinyu's figure floated down from the air. Her body trembled lightly, and after that, she actually danced gracefully under the moonlight. In an instant, the gazes of the crowd could no longer shift away. The dance of the fairies in the pavilion below Yi Qinyu was also extremely beautiful, but at this moment, no one was able to appreciate it. All the attention was focused on Yi Qinyu. Her dance seemed to contain some sort of magical power. The moment she started dancing, everyone was drawn in, gradually falling into a trance. When Qin Wentian saw this dance, he also had no way to shift his gaze away. Once again, he was stunned by Yi Qinyu. There were many beauties in the immortal realms, beauties as common as the clouds. He had seen many dances performed by fairies, but he had never seen such a beautiful dance before. In addition, this dance was performed by Yi Qinyu, a supreme beauty paired with a world-shaking dance. This side of the lake instantly fell into silence. The moonlight shone down on Yi Qinyu. It was like she was the only person left in this world. Only her dance existed. The maidens below the pavilion stopped. They walked out, and were similarly admiring Yi Qinyu. This was a true dance. It didn't seem like a dance of the mortal realm. Even for the maidens, they couldn't shift their gazes away for a long time. For those without great willpower, they would instantly be deeply attracted, unable to extricate themselves. That spiraling dance, that dancing fairy, that swaying figure, that long hair fluttering in the wind. Every scene was deeply imprinted in the minds of everyone. Qin Wentian suddenly saw Yi Qinyu smiling at him as she spun around. That smile seemed to have seeped into his soul, transforming into a mark that actually caused Qin Wentian to involuntarily tremble. Princess Kitamura stared dumbfoundedly for a moment. After that, Her gaze slowly shifted to Qin Wentian, who was beside her. When she saw Qin Wentian being so attracted that he couldn't extricate himself, she sighed. No wonder he couldn't resist such a beautiful maiden. No man would be able to resist such a beauty. In addition, not only was she beautiful, she was also charming, capable of seeping into one's soul. Is there a reason why you invited me here today? Princess Kitamura no longer mocked Qin Wentian. She seriously asked. Qin Wentian awoke from the beautiful dance. He transmitted his voice to Princess Kitamura. Back then when I went to the mine, I didn't expect that I would be gone for over 10 years. I was worried that you might be at a disadvantage under the Jialan Monarch. Although I heard that you are favored by the Lifire Empyrean, I'm still worried and wanted to visit you. Princess Kitamura's beautiful eyes flashed with a strange light. After that she replied, I'm fine. The Lifire Empyrean personally appointed me to assist the Jialan Monarch. But in truth, I'm considered someone from the Lifire Empyrean's side. The Jialan Monarch wouldn't dare to do anything to me. Qin Wentian nodded lightly. If that's the case, I can be at ease. Given your talent and beauty, no matter where you go, you would be valued. Beauties always have an advantage, let alone someone as beautiful as you. Are you praising me? Princess Kitamura calmly asked. Naturally. Qin Wentian nodded. Then how do you compare to her? Princess Kitamura inclined her head and stared at the dancing silhouettes. However, she instantly regretted asking this. She silently cursed herself for asking this question. Could it be that she was provoked by Qin Wentian earlier? Both of you are extremely rare in the world. Each of you has your own unique beauty. She is like a beauty under the moon, able to tempt the masses. As for you, you are like a goddess under the moon, sacred and inviolable. Why is there a need to compare? Qin Wentian laughed. Princess Kitamura didn't say anything. She continued. In that case, are you prepared to continue being a bandit? Could it be that you don't know what it means to be a bandit in the supreme ancient immortal realms? You would never be able to show your true face to others, or you would be hunted down endlessly. Given your talent, even if you no longer want to be a bandit, you can still go to other places to temper yourself. In fact, it wouldn't be a problem for you to join any major power. Qin Wentian sighed in his heart. He turned his gaze ahead again. When Princess Kitamura asked this question, he suddenly understood why Yi Qianyu would treat him like this. Even if he didn't have any other feelings for Yi Qianyu in his heart, would he really be able to leave just like that after Yi Qianyu treated him like this? After all, humans weren't emotionless creatures. It was impossible for them to fall out with each other. If he wanted to leave, at the very least, he would have to wait until he could truly do something for Yi Qianyu and repay her kindness before he left. Princess Kitamura stared at Qin Wentian's expression and seemed to have understood something. In the end, he still couldn't overcome the charms of a beauty. I understand. Princess Kitamura spoke in a light voice. Qin Wentian bitterly smiled and shook his head. Did she really understand? Clearly, Princess Kitamura didn't understand. However, he still didn't explain. After all, there was no relationship between him and Princess Kitamura. It was just that the crazy old freak dragged Princess Kitamura to accompany him to the immortal realms. Before this, given Princess Kitamura's strength, she could take care of him. But now, after he recovered to his peak, he no longer needed Princess Kitamura to take care of him. A messaging crystal suddenly appeared in Princess Kitamura's hand. Qin Wentian started before he understood. A strand of immortal sense gushed forth from him, entering into Princess Kitamura's messaging crystal. At the same time, he also took out his own messaging crystal. Princess Kitamura did the same thing as him, sending a strand of her immortal sense into it. In this case, in the future, they would be able to communicate directly through their messaging crystals. In the future, you have to be more careful. Tell them that it's best for them not to continue plundering the mines in the Jialan Monarch's territory. Also, they mustn't be discovered no matter what. The Lifire Palace would definitely be enraged. Once they learn of your identities, the Jialan Monarch would directly borrow experts from the Lifire Palace to kill you all. Princess Kitamura kept her messaging crystal as she spoke. Qin Wentian nodded. You as well. The hearts of humans are unfathomable. When working for the Lifefire Empyrean, you have to keep a low profile and don't easily offend others. I understand. Princess Kitamura nodded. After that, the boat under her feet slowly moved forward. And at this moment, Yi Qianyu's dance also gradually came to a halt. Chapter 1554. After Yi Qianyu stopped her dance, the entire lake quietened down as well. The eyes of everyone were still staring at that supreme figure under the moonlight. That figure seemed to be branded into the depths of their souls, so beautiful that it was suffocating. No matter how strong one's cultivation base was, when Yi Qianyu danced, no one would be able to resist her charm. The dance of a fairy is truly rare in this world. After a long time, a soft sigh rang out. Everyone gradually woke up. When they stared at Yi Qianyu's incomparably demonic beauty, they all felt an intense impulse to take her for themselves. Palace mistress, we should return. Qin Wentian stood on the dragon boat as he transmitted his voice to Yi Qianyu. Yi Qianyu smiled and glanced at him as she replied, "Have you finished your tryst with your lover? I haven't played enough yet." After speaking, Yi Qianyu turned to everyone and continued, "Everyone, please don't blame me for making a fool of myself today. I only wish to find an ideal husband to accompany me. I wonder if anyone is willing?" Qin Wentian had a dumbfounded look on his face as he stared at Yi Qianyu. This demoness, what was she trying to do exactly? Naturally, if Fairy doesn't mind, I'm willing to love only Fairy in this life. An extraordinarily handsome young man spoke. His skin was so thick that it caused people to click their tongues. He actually dared to directly confess. If Fairy can accompany me by my side, even if I can't cultivate in this life, I'm willing. Another person spoke. Everyone expressed their stances one after another. Among them, there were some Empyreans with extremely high cultivation bases. All of them were mesmerized by Yi Qianyu. At this moment, there were indeed many people who were deeply attracted by Yi Qianyu. They were simply infatuated with her, and were willing to give up everything to have her. There are so many people. How can this little maiden choose? Since this is a world of cultivation, why don't we all compete based on strength? The one who can defeat all the heroes in the end, I will follow him. How about it? Yi Qianyu's beautiful eyes flashed with a charming smile, causing everyone to be infatuated. A peak stage immortal king stepped out, directly walking towards Yi Qianyu. I'm willing to give it a try. Boom. Abruptly, a gigantic fiery palm imprint descended from the sky, directly blasting towards the immortal king. That immortal king's expression drastically changed. A deafening boom rang out as that peak stage immortal king screamed in agony as his body was directly smashed into the lake. How laughable. Fairy is at the immortal emperor realm. An immortal king actually dares to step forward? An extraordinary cultivator walked out with his hands clasped behind his back. He was wearing a fiery robe and said, I'm an elder of the Xianyan sect. If you don't mind, I'm willing to protect you. A mere elder of the Mystic Flame sect dares to act rashly here. I advise you not to come out and embarrass yourself. An Empyrean young man stepped out. His cultivation base was extremely high, at the immortal emperor realm. Also, he looked extremely young, like a gentleman, incomparably carefree. This was a disciple of an extraordinary power in Emperor City. His talent was extremely high, and his appearance was handsome. Thus, he was very confident. Fairy is a supreme beauty, able to topple cities with a single dance, and also has such a high cultivation base. Initially, I wouldn't be able to match up to you. But since Fairy has spoken, I naturally have to fight for this opportunity. This person spoke beautifully, but in his heart, he was guessing that Yi Qianyu might be Wuxia who cultivated the charm arts. Although she was beautiful, she was abandoned by others and wanted to find a power to rely on. Not only him, many people here also had the same thought. If not, with such a beauty and such a cultivation base, what qualifications did she have to choose a Dao companion? Palace Lord, have you played enough? Qin Wentian's expression turned black. When he saw more and more people arriving, he knew that the Jialan monarch's subordinates would notice them. Although no one knew that Yi Qianyu was a bandit, it was still better to be more cautious. If there were any clues, things wouldn't be fun. Yi Qianyu's eyes were filled with hidden bitterness as she glanced at Qin Wentian. She transmitted her voice. If you don't act now, I might really leave with someone else. This vixen. Qin Wentian was speechless in his heart. Was she playing like this just to force him to act? However, he could tell that regardless of whether it was plundering or her actions today, Yi Qianyu had always done whatever she wanted. She had no reservations at all, but she was also extremely intelligent. From the start, she wanted to see his astral souls and didn't force him to do anything. She only gave him a supreme cultivation platform. You clearly knew that she wanted to rope you in, but you still fell for it. And now this Yi Qianyu was also doing this intentionally. Was she trying to force him to act? This crazy woman. Qin Wentian sighed silently. With a step, he moved towards Yi Qianyu. After arriving beside Yi Qianyu, Qin Wentian stretched out his hand and pulled her back. Let's go. Sure, hug me. Yi Qianyu's eyes were like silk as she stared at Qin Wentian. I'm just taking advantage of you for free. I won't take responsibility. Don't regret it. Qin Wentian was incomparably depressed. After being teased by her for so many days, Qin Wentian was also extremely depressed. He lifted Yi Qianyu up, and when Yi Qianyu's soft and supple body wrapped around him, she would definitely be able to cause him to sink into oblivion instantly. Put her down. The young man from before had an unsightly expression on his face. An immortal king actually dared to come out and snatch her away? Let's go. Qin Wentian carried Yi Qianyu and directly moved forward. That immortal emperor radiated a resplendent light, enveloping him. Qin Wentian coldly glanced at him, and in just an instant, a terrifying eye technique was unleashed, instantly creating an eye technique space that caused his opponent to feel as though he was trapped within. Boundless sword might descended from the sky, forming a sword domain that could destroy everything. He roared loudly as emperor might gushed forth, sweeping through everything. Qin Wentian continued moving forward, punching out with a myriad of fist lights that howled in anger. It was like the fist of a heavenly god, tyrannical to the extreme. That immortal emperor roared in rage as a thunderous boom rang out. He was struck by the fist and was forced back explosively as he coughed out a mouthful of blood. Upon seeing this powerful attack, the eyes of everyone narrowed. When they saw Qin Wentian passing by, no one dared to block him. After that, they saw Yi Qianyu smiling charmingly at them, as though her scheme had succeeded. Only at this moment did they understand that Yi Qianyu was doing this because she wanted this young man to act. In the blink of an eye, the figures of Qin Wentian and Yi Qianyu vanished from the vision of everyone. Many people felt a sense of disappointment and frustration. That beautiful dance still lingered in their minds, unable to disperse even after a very long time. Was she really just an ordinary female, who cultivated in the art of charm? That kind of demeanor, that kind of dance, could she be? Qin Wentian's speed was extremely fast, soaring through the air. Yi Qianyu's hands were hooked around his neck as she stared at him with a myriad of emotions in her eyes. Under the moonlight, that flawless countenance and incomparably alluring figure caused Qin Wentian to not dare to look at her. Palace mistress, are you satisfied now? Qin Wentian released his neck, but Yi Qianyu actually didn't want to let go. She smiled warmly. After today, I'm afraid you won't be able to forget about me forever. As she spoke, she released her grip and walked side by side with Qin Wentian. A charming smile that could move the hearts of men could be seen on her face. Qin Wentian's heart trembled slightly. That dance flashed in his mind, as well as the tender figure that was in his arms earlier. He silently sighed in his heart. As expected, the things she wanted to do would always be accomplished unintentionally. In addition, even though he knew she was doing this intentionally, he still couldn't stop her. Today, Qin Wentian initially came here to see Princess Kitamura. But unknowingly, most probably, the memories of today were only about Princess Kitamura. This palace mistress of his was simply too awesome. Palace mistress, given your cultivation base and looks, why must you do this? Qin Wentian bitterly smiled. Yi Qianyu gently stared at Qin Wentian as she smiled. Could it be that you don't know that you are very handsome? Oh. Qin Wentian was completely speechless. He naturally wouldn't be so foolish to think that a supreme beauty at the immortal emperor realm would tempt him like this just because he was very handsome. Oh yeah, do you still want to see the dance I performed earlier? If you want to see it in the future, you can come and look for me. I will dance it for you alone. Yi Qinyu suddenly laughed. After a moment of astonishment, a spatial gate appeared. Qin Wentian stepped into it and fled in defeat. After returning to Heavenly City, Qin Wentian immediately entered closed-door seclusion. He was afraid that if he were to interact with this demoness for too long, he might really be eaten up by her. As the #1 beauty of Heavenly City, even if Yi Qinyu didn't take the initiative to seduce others, there would be countless people drooling over her. Let alone when she went all out to seduce others. Most probably, not many people would be able to block her. Naturally, others wouldn't block her as well. With such a supreme beauty throwing herself at them, who would reject her? However, things were different for Qin Wentian. If he really accepted Yi Qinyu, he would have to accept everything Yi Qinyu had to shoulder. He naturally understood this point in his heart. The hatred between her and the two world palaces, as her man, he naturally had to bear it. This wasn't the main reason. The deeper reason was naturally because of Qing'er and Qingcheng. They had given up too much for him, and he knew that they were still waiting for him to return. He had to return to the Azure Mystic Immortal Realms as soon as possible. Right now, his most important goal was to raise his strength. When facing a woman like Yi Qinyu, who wouldn't be moved? But even if his heart was moved, he still couldn't take that step forward. This time around, he entered closed-door seclusion for a very long time. During this period of time, he came out a few times but never for more than a day. At most, he would chat with Yi Qinyu, drink a few cups of wine, or ask about Princess Kitamura's current situation. After that, he would return to his closed-door seclusion. With such cultivation conditions, how could he not work hard? Unknowingly, another 10 years passed. It has been 23 years since Qin Wentian entered the supreme ancient immortal realms. Not only did he recover his cultivation, he even surpassed his peak state back then. During these 10 years of closed-door seclusion, one could say that he was only a step away from the immortal emperor realm. Qin Wentian could faintly sense that he wasn't far from the immortal emperor realm. Chapter 1555. In Heavenly City, there was a famous blacksmith named the River Portrait Immortal Emperor. He was an all-round blacksmith. The River Portrait Immortal Emperor was famous for his forging skills. His talent in forging and inscribing formations was extremely high. He was a true grandmaster-level character. Many famous buildings in Heavenly City were built by him. Not only so, some emperor-level characters from the major powers of the Lifefire Palace would also personally visit him to invite him to help out. However, the River Portrait Immortal Emperor focused on his cultivation or researching forging. He didn't belong to any major powers, and similarly, he didn't belong to any world overlord powers. In the supreme ancient immortal realms, the statuses of famed blacksmiths were extremely high. They could easily obtain vast amounts of cultivation resources, and many unaffiliated cultivators wanted to walk the path of famed blacksmiths. When their cultivation base encountered a bottleneck, and it was hard for them to advance further, they might spend many years to focus on forging. However, this was the same as cultivation. It required a high level of talent. Also, there were some people who wanted to condense a forging astral soul, and had long since wanted to walk on this path. At this moment, in the residence of the River Portrait Immortal Emperor, Qin Wentian was quietly staring at the River Portrait Immortal Emperor's carving. He was carving divine weapons, directly inscribing them on the gigantic Emperor stones. The weapons created by this method could only be considered the simplest type of divine weapon, and wouldn't have much use. However, the River Portrait Immortal Emperor had carved many of them, filling the entire ground. This was merely a method of his daily cultivation. As for Qin Wentian, he was currently sitting beside the River Portrait Immortal Emperor as he quietly watched. Don't think that this is the simplest form of carving. To the vast majority of people, they wouldn't even be able to do something as simple as this. Cultivation is never something that can be accomplished in a single step. It's the same for forging. For example, language is made up of words. If you can't even speak a single word, How can you combine those words into a sentence? The river portrait immortal emperor was very old. His hair was white but his spirit was very good. This was especially so when he was carving. His eyes shone with a bright light, as though he was in high spirits. You should come here often. With your talent and cultivation base, there are already very few people who can focus on forging. Hence, I have taught you many things. Even if you don't choose to walk on this path, it might still be of some help to your cultivation. The river portrait immortal emperor took out a gigantic emperor stone and tossed it to Qin Wentian. Come, try to carve it into a sword. All right. Qin Wentian smiled and nodded. An incomparably sharp sword of law appeared in his hand as he started to carve on the stone. This stone was extremely tough and Qin Wentian's speed was very slow, but he was very serious. Such a cultivation method could be said to be extremely wasteful. Only a wealthy blacksmith would do such a thing. Gradually, the emperor stone was shaped by Qin Wentian into the shape of a sword. Numerous clear inscriptions resembling sword inscriptions could be seen emanating from the emperor stone. Although it was clearly carved from a single emperor stone, tens of thousands of sword intents gushed forth at the same time, resembling a sword domain. As expected, you are extremely talented. If you are willing to focus on this, your future achievements will definitely be much higher than mine. The river portrait immortal emperor smiled at Qin Wentian. Senior praises me too much. It's just that I've studied formations in the past, and have some understanding of the Tao of divine inscriptions. That's why I'm able to do this with ease. I still need Senior's guidance, Qin Wentian replied humbly. Talent is the most important factor in forging. Have you read the ancient scrolls I gave you in the past? I've read them all. Qin Wentian nodded. He took out a few jade slips and passed them to the river portrait immortal emperor. Luo, go and bring some more jade slips over. The river portrait immortal emperor spoke. After that, a voice rang out from outside. Yes, Grandpa. A moment later, a young lady in white walked over and passed some jade slips to Qin Wentian. Her beautiful eyes flashed with a smile as she spoke. Grandpa has never treated someone so well before. I naturally understand Senior's kindness. Qin Wentian nodded. Lass, these things are originally meant for others to look at. It's a waste to leave them on me. Given the talent of this brat, I'm naturally willing to add flowers to his brocade. The river portrait immortal emperor laughed. Little brat Qin, if you have the chance in the future, you can pay a visit to the Heavenly Talisman Realm. The Realm Lord of the Heavenly Talisman Realm has an extremely deep understanding of the Tao of divine inscriptions. There are many powerful blacksmiths there. Heavenly Talisman Realm. Qin Wentian's heart trembled. What a familiar name. So it turned out that the Heavenly Talisman Realm was the same as the Lifelong Realm. Was it part of the Supreme Ancient Immortal Realms? In that case, the Heavenly Talisman Realm in the Azure Mystic Immortal Realms was merely a chess piece the Realm Lord planted in the lower world. In that case, did the Realm Lord's ultimate goal was to control the Azure Mystic Immortal Realms in his hands? Given how the Heavenly Talisman Realm has been silently developing for so many years, there was a high possibility that this was the case. If they accumulated enough strength, once the Heavenly Talisman Realm came out, they might really be able to topple the entire Azure Mystic Immortal Realms. In that case, this ungoverned Azure Mystic Immortal Realms might become the backup strength of the Heavenly Talisman Realm. Heavenly Talisman Realm Lord? Master? Qin Wentian smiled and shook his head. What sort of status did the Overlord of a realm have? Most probably he wouldn't be able to climb up to it. Back then when he was at the Celestial Phenomenon Realm, he had already joined the Heavenly Talisman Realm, and took the Realm Lord as his master. But in truth, that was merely their wishful thinking. At most, they could only be considered disciples in name. Most probably, the Realm Lord of the Heavenly Talisman Realm wouldn't have the time to care about them. Yet the Heavenly Talisman Realm that is adjacent to the Lifelong Realm. You haven't been to such a faraway place yet, right? In the future when you grow stronger, you will naturally have a chance to go. The river portrait immortal emperor laughed. Grandpa, I also want to go on a faraway journey. Why don't you let me go out? The white-robed maiden at the side stared at the river portrait immortal emperor in a charming manner. Aha! With just you? I'm afraid you would be snatched away before you can even go out. The river portrait immortal emperor laughed. Luo'er's lips twitched. No matter what, I'm still at the immortal king realm. Fine. In the future when you find a Dao companion, you guys can go on a faraway journey. At that time, Grandpa won't care about you anymore. The river portrait immortal emperor laughed and shook his head. Grandpa, I won't look for a Dao companion. I just want to accompany Grandpa. How can that do? Grandpa will eventually grow old, and you will meet someone you like sooner or later. Actually, I feel that little brat Qin Wentian isn't bad. Luo, what do you think of him? The river portrait immortal emperor joked. Luo glanced at Qin Wentian. Her pure countenance was filled with shyness. She then glared at the river portrait immortal emperor. Grandpa, what nonsense are you talking about? How can Mr. River Portrait be old? Old man, you are still young and vigorous. In the future, your cultivation base will surely grow stronger. A gentle voice drifted over. Yi Qinyu, who was dressed in a long dress, walked over. Her eyes were filled with hidden bitterness as she glared at Qin Wentian. Palace mistress really knows how to speak. However, compared to her, this old man is truly old. The river portrait immortal emperor smiled and shook his head. Mr. River Portrait, is my man's talent in forging passable? Yi Qinyu smiled. The river portrait immortal emperor started. After that, he saw Yi Qinyu walking to the side of Qin Wentian and stretching out her hand to hold Qin Wentian's arm. Only then did he understand. His eyes were filled with bewilderment as he stared at Yi Qinyu and Qin Wentian. Little brat Qin's talent is naturally extremely good. The river portrait immortal emperor nodded. In that case, many thanks for Mr.'s nurturing. We will bid our farewell first. Yi Qinyu pulled Qin Wentian and left. Qin Wentian was speechless as he was dragged away by her. He then revealed an apologetic smile to the river portrait immortal emperor. After the two of them left, the eyes of the river portrait immortal emperor gleamed with sharpness. Strange, the number one beauty of Heavenly City actually fell in love with a little brat at the immortal king realm. Turning his head, he saw his granddaughter staring at the two of them in a daze. Luo, are you also interested in that brat Qin Wentian? But it seems like you have given up. You are still far from being able to compete with Yi Qinyu. It's just that although that brat Qin Wentian's talent is very good, is he really worthy of Yi Qinyu's actions? Yi Qinyu and Qin Wentian walked through Heavenly City. Her incomparably charming body leaned against Qin Wentian as she spoke. Recently, you have been coming here every day. Could it be that you have fallen in love with the purity of a young lady? Qin Wentian was speechless. Back then, weren't you the one who introduced me to Senior River Portrait to cultivate the art of forging? I also didn't expect that you would come here to woo girls. Yi Qinyu stared at Qin Wentian. Upon seeing the bitter smile on his face, she nudged him and exhaled. Could it be that I still can't satisfy you? Do you want this mistress to serve you in bed tonight? Palace mistress, can you spare me? Qin Wentian saw numerous gazes directed at him. Many of them were as sharp as blades. This place was Heavenly City and Yi Qinyu was known as the number one beauty of Heavenly City. Who didn't know of her? If he acted like this in public, his life would surely be in danger. Very swiftly, a shocking piece of news circulated around Heavenly City. The palace mistress of the Thousand Feathers Palace, the number one beauty of Heavenly City, Yi Qinyu, was actually hugging the arm of a young man in the city. They seemed extremely intimate, and it was said that the two of them were already Dao companions. This young man had long resided in Yi Qinyu's palace. In fact, 10 years ago, Yi Qinyu even paid a huge price to invite the river portrait immortal emperor to construct a supreme cultivation platform for him in her palace. When this news circulated out, countless people felt pain in their hearts. The goddess of their dreams had actually been obtained by someone else? There were some who were filled with hatred. A mere immortal king. What qualifications did he have to obtain Yi Qinyu? Hence, there were actually several immortal emperors who sent out letters of challenge to the mysterious young man, telling him to scram out of the Thousand Feathers Palace. However, Qin Wentian didn't appear. Yi Qinyu got others to act and beat up one of the immortal emperors who sent the letter of challenge. This matter caused countless people to weep. What was going on with this world? Was the number one beauty of Heavenly City possessed by a demon? Could it be that this mysterious young man had a special ability that could gain the favor of females? This news circulated wildly. Today, in the mountain range outside Heavenly City, two figures met. One of them was actually the barbarian emperor, while the other was also an immortal emperor. Palace mistress, is it really like the rumors? You are actually infatuated with an immortal king? That immortal emperor's voice was cold. Palace mistress. The barbarian emperor clenched his fists as he spoke with hatred. Qin Wentian has already resided in the palace mistress palace for over 10 years. The expression of the other immortal emperor stiffened. He sighed. I want to meet the palace mistress. It's useless. I've already persuaded her countless times, but the palace mistress is growing more and more disgusted with me. The barbarian emperor clenched his fists so tightly that crackling sounds could be heard. Qin Wentian must die. Let's act according to the plan we agreed upon. Let's not meet again, and directly communicate through the messaging crystal. The eyes of that immortal emperor flashed. After a moment of silence he nodded, fine. Chapter 1556. Qin Wentian's life was as simple as ever. He would comprehend, cultivate, borrow the emperor-ranked cultivation platform to sense the emperor light descending from the sky, and also research the art of forging. Sometimes he would be like the river portrait immortal emperor, sitting there and sculpting. The river portrait immortal emperor was a mid-stage immortal emperor, and was also a grandmaster-level character. Forging was something he had to do every day. This would allow him to steadily increase his affinity with the different attributes of emperor-ranked stones, allowing him to be more proficient in forging. Qin Wentian also felt that sculpting allowed him to gain a lot of insights. Every time he sculpted, he would be fully focused and his state of heart would be at peace. However, this was also because Qin Wentian was wealthy now. If it was back then when he first came to the supreme ancient immortal realms, how would he have such conditions? Using emperor-ranked stones to sculpt was simply too extravagant. 10 years ago, he plundered many treasures and obtained a lot of cultivation resources. In addition, with that cultivation platform, he wouldn't be able to use these cultivation resources normally. At this moment, on the high ground, Qin Wentian sat on the ground and took out an emperor-ranked stone, quietly sculpting. Beside him, a supreme beauty in white could be seen. Other than Yi Qinyu, who else could it be? Yi Qinyu stared at the serious expression on Qin Wentian's face, as her beautiful eyes gleamed with a bright light. She really liked how focused Qin Wentian was when he was sculpting. Even if she tried to tempt him, Qin Wentian would still be unmoved. MHM. Yi Qinyu's beautiful eyes suddenly flashed as she stared at the gigantic emperor stone in Qin Wentian's hands. He wasn't sculpting a weapon but was sculpting a person instead. The outline of a person could be faintly seen on the sword he was sculpting. An elegant figure, long hair, and gradually, an extremely beautiful face appeared. Pure and beautiful, a smile that could move the hearts of people. Those beautiful eyes were pure and flawless, capable of toppling empires. Who is she? Yi Qinyu had a serious expression on her face, as she stared at the sword in Qin Wentian's hand. He didn't stop and continued to carve out a flawless and lifelike image of that supreme beauty. After he was done, he continued to carve the image of another human. When the silhouette appeared, Yi Qinyu could already guess that this was a beautiful woman. In truth, it was just as she had guessed. This was a supreme beauty that exuded a faint coldness, incomparably pure and holy, as flawless as a snow lotus on an ice mountain. Who are they? Yi Qinyu's beautiful eyes flashed. She had met Princess Kitamura before, but the two maidens Qin Wentian sculpted were clearly not her. Finally, the engraving sword in Qin Wentian's hand dissipated, transforming back into astral light. He stared at the two silhouettes as a hint of gentleness flashed in his eyes. Such gentleness was something Yi Qinyu had never seen before. Upon seeing that gentle smile, Yi Qinyu's heart involuntarily trembled. Was this the reason why he was able to resist her temptation? They are my wives. Qin Wentian stared at the sculpture as he spoke in a light voice. I'm not someone from the supreme ancient immortal realms. I came from the Azure Mystic Immortal Realms from the lower world. In the Azure Mystic Immortal Realms, my enemies are everywhere. One day, the peak powers of the Azure Mystic Immortal Realms arrived at the place where my wives were at, forcing me to show myself. Many of my elders and good friends appeared together with me, resulting in a battle that shook the lower world. As for me, I died in battle. Hence, I can already be considered someone who has died once. Yi Qinyu didn't disturb Qin Wentian. She was actually very quiet as she listened. After that battle, my wife's hair instantly turned white. My other wife was like a living corpse. It was only until I was revived by a stroke of good fortune that she regained her vitality. Her eyes finally regained their luster, and after that, I came to the supreme ancient immortal realms due to a stroke of good fortune. As for them, they are still waiting for me in the Azure Mystic Immortal Realms. Qin Wentian smiled gently as he turned his gaze to Yi Qinyu. Is this the reason why your astral souls are extraordinary? Yi Qinyu instantly understood. My talent might be very ordinary. But knowing this, Palace Mistress, would you still be willing to do this to me? Qin Wentian smiled. Yi Qinyu smiled at Qin Wentian. Her smile didn't have the same charm as before. It was filled with gentleness as she spoke. Can you carve a portrait of me as well? Qin Wentian was instantly speechless. What was this woman thinking about? Upon seeing the look in Qin Wentian's eyes, Yi Qinyu giggled. Maybe, I don't have any objections to being your concubine. Do you want to give it a try? Qin Wentian stood up and fled in a sorry state, returning to the cultivation platform. Behind him, Yi Qinyu's laughter rang out. Qin Wentian, are you still a man? Recently, Princess Kitamura suddenly received a mission. This mission was personally issued by the Livefire Empyrean, wanting her to head to a secret realm. She naturally participated in it. This was an extremely important trial for the Livefire Palace. She couldn't use external treasures or communicate with anyone. Hence, everything on her, including her interspatial ring, couldn't be brought into the secret realm, including messaging crystals. But even so, she didn't have any doubts. She had been in the Livefire Palace for many years and knew that this was the rule. But just when Princess Kitamura accepted this mission, the Jialan Monarch actually issued a warrant for Qin Wentian's arrest. At the same time, one of Qin Wentian's accomplices would be executed a month later. It was said that Qin Wentian was a spy in the Jialan Monarch's palace. This news soon circulated. Was this Qin Wentian one of the bandits from back then? At this moment, Qin Wentian still didn't know about this. Until one day, when he was on his way to the River Portrait Immortal Emperor's place, the barbarian emperor stopped him. What's the matter? Right now, Qin Wentian's attitude towards the barbarian emperor was no longer as polite as in the past. After that incident in the past, he already knew that the barbarian emperor hated him in his heart. Take a look for yourself. The barbarian emperor waved his hand as a warrant appeared before Qin Wentian. Upon seeing the warrant, Qin Wentian's expression instantly turned extremely unsightly to behold. He turned and prepared to return. You want to tell the Empyrean? The barbarian emperor transmitted his voice. Do you think the Empyrean wouldn't know? If you tell her, do you think the Empyrean would still allow you to head to the Emperor City? Or do you think the Empyrean would send people to their deaths for the sake of your lover? Qin Wentian halted his steps. He slowly turned and coldly stared at the barbarian emperor as he transmitted his voice. You want me to head to the Emperor City to die? I can't ask you to go or not. Whether you are willing to go or not, that's your business. In any case, there are only a few days left. Naturally, from my point of view, your life is more important. In addition, the Empyrean likes you. Why would you care about a lover? The barbarian emperor coldly laughed as he left. How would I know that this warrant isn't forged by you? Qin Wentian stared at the back of the barbarian emperor as he coldly spoke. How ridiculous! You can easily find out the truth with just a simple investigation. The barbarian emperor directly left. Qin Wentian stood at his original location and took out his messaging crystal. He sent a strand of his immortal sense into it and contacted Princess Kitamura. Yu Huang, where are you? There was no reply. He then spoke again. Yu Huang, this is an extremely urgent matter. Immediately reply to me. There was still no reply. Qin Wentian's expression instantly turned pale. He lifted his feet and headed towards the River Portrait Immortal Emperor's location. However, his entire person was in a daze. Today he sent many messages, but he didn't receive any reply from Princess Kitamura no matter what he said. Clearly, the barbarian emperor's words were true. Something happened to Yu Huang. On the second day, Qin Wentian silently left Heavenly City alone. He naturally disguised himself. Regardless of whether it was true or not, he had to go and take a look. He didn't tell Yi Qianyu. Even if she was willing to go together with him, he didn't want to implicate her. After exiting Heavenly City, Qin Wentian sped towards a certain direction with incredible speed. On the way, Qin Wentian frowned. His sharp senses told him that there were people following him. Although this feeling was very weak, his instincts told him that there should be someone following him. However, he didn't care about it and continued on his way. Finally, two figures appeared before him, quietly standing there as though they had been waiting for him. Behind him, that immortal sense no longer concealed itself and directly shot towards him. Very swiftly, another two figures appeared. All four of them were at the Immortal Emperor realm. In fact, one of them was at the mid-stage of the Immortal Emperor realm. All of them were clad in armor and were fully equipped, like they were used to plunder mines. Barbarian Emperor, is this your true killing move? Qin Wentian coldly spoke. One of the two behind him was none other than the Barbarian Emperor. Qin Wentian, if you manage to enter the Emperor City alive and get captured, what if you betray us? Leaving you alive would only be a calamity. The Barbarian Emperor coldly spoke. The Jialan Monarch was precisely the one who leaked the news. However, the Barbarian Emperor only had a single goal, and that was to kill Qin Wentian. He naturally wasn't willing to implicate the Thousand Feathers Palace. Even though Yi Qianyu's feelings for him were far inferior compared to Qin Wentian, he still liked Yi Qianyu and had liked her for many years. He only wanted Qin Wentian to die. Are you all also Qianyu's subordinates? Was it the Barbarian Emperor who instigated all of you to kill me? Qin Wentian stared at the others as he spoke. The palace mistress is behaving strangely now. As her subordinates, we can only help her correct her actions. An immortal emperor coldly spoke. Even if we are to be punished, we still don't mind it. I will naturally bear all the punishment. However, the Thousand Feathers Palace is the blood and sweat of us brothers. We cannot allow it to be destroyed in the hands of an outsider. The Barbarian Emperor's voice was extremely cold. All right, let's do it. The others nodded. 4 immortal emperors, including a mid-stage immortal emperor. Using such a lineup to kill a peak-stage immortal king was already sufficient to show that they regarded Qin Wentian highly. This was naturally the arrangement of the Barbarian Emperor. He knew how powerful Qin Wentian was, being able to easily kill an initial-stage immortal king. He couldn't help but to be more cautious. An intense light radiated from Qin Wentian. The radiance was so resplendent that people couldn't even open their eyes. Almost at the same time, the 4 immortal emperors unleashed their powerful law energy. Beams of emperor light descended from the sky, as well as astral light. They stood in 4 different directions, and directly blasted out an attack towards Qin Wentian. Chapter 1557. With a step, Qin Wentian directly departed, vanishing from this area. That immortal emperor turned and coldly stared at the Barbarian Emperor. You will be responsible for his death. Also, you will be responsible for this matter as well. Also, stop all the preparations. Let's hope that nothing will happen to him in time. The mid-stage immortal emperor spoke. They didn't know that Princess Kitamura wasn't captured, and they also didn't know about the arrangements made by the Jialan Monarch. After all, even if the Barbarian Emperor wanted to frame Qin Wentian, it was impossible for him to truly collude with the Jialan Monarch. If that was the case, he would definitely die. He only sent someone to spread the news of Qin Wentian's identity to the Jialan Monarch. Everything that happened next, they were simply taking advantage of the situation to kill Qin Wentian along the way. However, Qin Wentian's true body turned his gaze to one of the immortal emperors. With just a single glance, an eye technique manifested, sealing the emperor light in the sky. That mid-stage immortal emperor stared at Yi Qianyu's vanishing figure. He then turned his gaze to the barbarian emperor as killing intent flashed in his eyes. If anything happens to the palace lord, you can accompany him in death. The barbarian emperor's body trembled. His face contorted as he stared at Yi Qianyu's emotionless gaze. He felt his heart turning cold. The barbarian emperor's expression stiffened, turning ashen. We temporarily can't tell the palace lord about this matter. Another immortal emperor spoke. That immortal emperor nodded. It was true that they had to wait for the storm to pass before telling the palace lord. If not, things would be bad if the palace lord went to Jialan Emperor City. Palace lord. That mid-stage immortal emperor froze. Qin Wentian also stopped and stared at him. The strength of a mid-stage immortal emperor was many times stronger compared to initial-stage immortal emperors. The two of them basically couldn't be compared. Right now, even if Qin Wentian didn't block out the astral light, he would still be able to kill initial-stage immortal emperors. But killing mid-stage immortal emperors wasn't so easy. You once asked me which part of you can't compare to him. Man, let me ask you now. Which part of you can compare to him? Yi Qianyu impolitely asked. The barbarian emperor clenched his fists tightly. He only felt shame and anger. Do you really think I'm stupid? A voice suddenly rang out, causing the eyes of the three of them to freeze. They raised their heads and looked in a certain direction, only to see a beautiful figure walking over with a little lion in her arms. This time around, we have plundered the main mine under the Jialan monarch's control. The Lifefire Empyrean has many experts under him, and it's unknown how many powerful characters there are. Even if you don't have the heart to betray us, it doesn't mean that you won't be controlled. You must know that there are many methods to make a person speak. Keep an eye on him. After this matter is over, we will settle the score. If he dares to disobey, kill him without mercy. If something happens to me, immediately disband the Thousand Feathers Palace, and send everyone away. Yi Qianyu commanded. The other two immortal emperors only watched from the back and didn't participate. Earlier, when Qin Wentian killed an immortal emperor with a single strike, they still felt trepidation in their hearts. If Qin Wentian took advantage of this opportunity, he would be able to kill all of them in an extremely short period of time. They had no choice but to act cautiously. They might as well let this mid-stage immortal emperor act alone to kill Qin Wentian. The mid-stage immortal emperor ignored the barbarian emperor and continued to stare at Qin Wentian. Qin Wentian's eyes flashed with a cold killing intent. He punched out with his fist and in an instant, a sword of light pierced through space, not giving his opponent any time to react. That immortal emperor roared. His emperor law energy gushed forth from his body as he blasted out an attack towards the sword of light. However, the sword of light that was infused with the power of light seemed to be able to distort, attacking from the top of his opponent's head, back and all other directions. Must you go? If you turn back, I can stop. That mid-stage immortal emperor suddenly spoke, his words causing the eyes of the barbarian emperor to narrow. What do you mean by that? The emperor light from one of the immortal emperors intensified to the extreme. Destructive lightning flashed, enveloping the entire space, transforming into a gigantic net of lightning that shot downwards. Under the bombardment of lightning, many of Qin Wentian's illusory bodies were directly shattered. Boundless swords of light shot out, directly piercing into his opponent's body. That immortal emperor's body flashed with a blinding light, before he screamed in agony. His body disintegrated under the light, dying. The Empyrean regarded Qin Wentian highly. This wasn't simply because he was infatuated with men. From Qin Wentian's body, a blinding light radiated forth, capable of destroying everything. After the light flashed, rings of resplendent Vajra holy will enveloped his entire body. But even so, the attacks of the four immortal emperors were still able to destroy everything. Many of their attacks directly entered Qin Wentian's body. The eyes of that mid-stage immortal emperor gleamed with a terrifying light. With a single glance, it felt like he could split the heavens and earth apart. He punched out with his fist as the light from the great Tao gushed forth like torrential waves. Meteors rained down from the sky, burying everything. Numerous spatial gates appeared once more. Qin Wentian wanted to increase the distance between him and his opponent, but his opponent took another step forward. The spatial gates were instantly torn apart. Qin Wentian's body was once again subjected to that terrifying tearing force. The Barbarian Emperor and the other initial stage Immortal Emperor felt their hearts trembling when they saw Qin Wentian's attack. The killing intent in the eyes of the Barbarian Emperor grew even more intense. As for the other Immortal Emperor, his heart wavered. Maybe this was the reason why the Empyrean treated him so well? Finally, that mid-stage Immortal King took a step to the side. "What are you doing?" the Barbarian Emperor roared. Qin Wentian glanced over, staring at the Barbarian Emperor. After that, the Barbarian Emperor shut up. The Buddha Devil light flashed. Qin Wentian was a half-Buddha, half-devil. He had a golden Buddha body, undying and indestructible. Even so, why does the Empyrean have to personally take the risk? Is this worth it? That mid-stage Immortal Emperor spoke again. The mid-stage Immortal King fell silent. He stared at Qin Wentian as the pressure in the air grew even heavier. "Go." Qin Wentian waved his hands as numerous swords of great radiance shot out, piercing through the air. In the air, his sword domain contained boundless sword might that danced in the air, whistling through the air towards his opponent. It was like a sword river cascading down from the 9 heavenly layers, simply too resplendent. Behind him, a pair of demonic eyes appeared. They were incomparably gigantic, and with a single glance, they transformed into an eye-technique dimension, sealing everything. However, that mid-stage Immortal Emperor punched out with a single punch, shattering everything. No matter how tyrannical your law domain is, I'll shatter it with a single punch. Speaking of which, it was a little ironic. For Immortal Emperors were fighting against a single peak-stage Immortal King. In the end, the other 2 Immortal Emperors actually chose to hide at the back, not daring to act. "My identity hasn't been exposed yet. I'll naturally act according to the situation. With the little lion around, even if something happens, I would still be able to escape." Yi Qinyu smiled. After that, her silhouette flashed as she followed after Qin Wentian, flying into the distance. Boom! The space trembled. Qin Wentian only felt his body shuddering violently. The expression of that mid-stage Immortal Emperor was extremely cold. For Immortal Emperors acted together, but Qin Wentian actually managed to kill one of them in the blink of an eye. Boundless astral light shone on him as his law energy surged to the extreme. With another step out, Qin Wentian only felt a supreme might boring down on him. His body felt like it was about to be torn apart. Because of this, one of their Immortal Emperors died. But could they blame Qin Wentian? The 4 of them wanted to kill Qin Wentian. Qin Wentian naturally had to retaliate. "Hey man, I'm truly very disappointed in you." Yi Qinyu stared at the Barbarian Emperor. Qin Wentian glanced at her in bewilderment. After that, he understood what she meant. He then spoke. "You can rest assured. I, Qin, have received the favor of Palace Lord. Even if I end up in the hands of the Jialan Monarch, I will definitely not betray Palace Lord and all of you." The Barbarian Emperor wanted to take revenge on Qin Wentian. This no longer concerned Qin Wentian's life alone. If Qin Wentian was jealous and directly spread this news, wouldn't they all die without a burial ground? Once Qin Wentian stepped into the Immortal Emperor realm, he would definitely be a character that could hold his own. It wouldn't be a problem for him to kill mid-stage Immortal Emperors. To them, this would be a great help. But because of a single sentence from the Barbarian Emperor, Qin Wentian might die. There are some things that cannot be obstructed. If not, if he hates you, what's the point of everything? Yi Qinyu sighed. Around Qin Wentian, an even more intense light radiated from him, enveloping this entire space. A sword domain appeared in the air, with Qin Wentian at the center. Numerous supreme swords of light floated in front of Qin Wentian, unceasingly radiating a boundless sword might of light. The attacks of the 2 of them frenziedly clashed against each other as destructive might ravaged the surroundings. The eyes of that mid-stage Immortal Emperor gleamed with a resplendent light. When he saw that Qin Wentian had suddenly stopped, he retreated and didn't continue his attack. The barbarian emperor concealed Qin Wentian's talent, and only told them that their palace lord was bewitched by Qin Wentian. Doting on this peak-stage immortal king, the entire Thousand Feathers Palace would be destroyed if they were to do so. But after the battle with Qin Wentian, it was very clear that the barbarian emperor had lied. Regardless of whether you believe it or not, I have to go. Qin Wentian didn't say anything more. He stared at the barbarian emperor. However, how terrifying was Qin Wentian's defense. He had an undying body and the law energy of life. His damaged body instantly recovered, and at the same time, numerous illusory figures appeared in the air. Not only so, countless spatial gates also appeared in the air, leading to different directions. The illusory figures of Qin Wentian all flew towards different directions in an instant. If it wasn't for the fact that you are my father's disciple, I would have killed you on the spot just because of this matter. Yi Qianyu's voice was cold to the extreme. The barbarian emperor's actions had already crossed her bottom line. As a woman, she controlled the Thousand Feathers Palace, secretly controlling a major power. Robbing was an extremely dangerous matter. As the core members of the Thousand Feathers Palace, if any of them were to die, the lives of everyone here would surely be affected. Palace Lord. The expression of that mid-stage immortal emperor drastically changed. Palace Lord, why must you take the risk? Why don't you directly intercept Qin Wentian and prevent him from going there? This attack was an ability bestowed to him by one of his astral souls, the Tree of Life. It allowed him to change the direction of his attack. Chapter 1558. The Jialan Emperor City was as flourishing as ever. One of Qin Wentian's astral souls, the Eyes of Truth, had an extremely powerful illusory ability that could change one's appearance and aura. Right now, he had already arrived at the center of this flourishing emperor city. As expected, the barbarian emperor didn't lie to him. Qin Wentian tried to contact Princess Kitamura again, but it was useless. He didn't know how many times he tried to contact the barbarian emperor through his messaging crystal. All of this proved that something had really happened to Princess Kitamura. The barbarian emperor had betrayed him. Qin Wentian wasn't clear about the situation at the Lifefire Palace, and also didn't know what Princess Kitamura's current status was in the Lifefire Palace. But he knew that everything he saw led him to a certain direction. That was, tomorrow afternoon, the Jialan Monarch would execute Princess Kitamura on the execution platform in the Jialan Emperor City. As for why was it so troublesome, it was naturally to lure him out. If not, he could just kill her directly. But even though he knew the Jialan Monarch's plot, he had no choice but to come. The matter of him becoming a bandit had nothing to do with Princess Kitamura. On the second day, the surroundings of the execution platform in the Jialan Emperor City were extremely lively. Many experts gathered here and the scorching sun rays cascaded down, causing everyone to feel uncomfortable. The execution platform was located in the south of the Jialan Emperor City and had a mountain ridge behind it. It was an incomparably gigantic blood-colored execution platform. In history, many bandit characters had been killed on this execution platform, and there were also some who had violated the laws of the Jialan Emperor City. At this moment, on the execution platform, there was a gigantic black cage made from blackstone and was incomparably sturdy. Immortal senses had no way to permeate it. Within it, the person who was about to be executed was imprisoned. Below the execution platform, many people had gathered. They heard that the person imprisoned was a great beauty and was a spy for the bandit 10 years ago. She was extremely powerful and was highly regarded by the Jialan Monarch. Many people were discussing, thinking that this beauty was unlucky and that it would be difficult for her to escape death. Qin Wentian was among the crowd as well. His immortal sense gushed out, and he naturally discovered that there were as many experts as the clouds in this space. Just on the execution platform, there were already 2 immortal emperors guarding it. In the shadows, there were even more immortal emperors. With such a lineup, how could they allow others to destroy it? The sunlight became brighter and brighter, stinging people's eyes. Gradually, The sun rose into the sky and hung above the heads of the crowd. A few figures soared through the air, and among them, the Jialan monarch was among them. He personally came here to carry out the punishment. Beside the Jialan monarch, there was another Emperorian character with an extremely powerful cultivation base. He was actually a peak-stage immortal emperor, and his name was the Crow Emperor. He was someone sent by the Lifefire Palace to coordinate with the Jialan monarch in this operation. Jialan, are you sure he will come this time around? Crow transmitted his voice to the Jialan monarch. That fellow's relationship with Princess Kitamura isn't ordinary. Even if he doesn't come here to capture Princess Kitamura, he would at least come to take a look. He should have already arrived. Even if he made a mistake, it would only waste some of Mr. Crow's time. I will naturally compensate Mr. Crow properly. The Jialan monarch replied. Since this is the case, I'll wait and see. Crow didn't say anything more. The Jialan monarch waved his hand, and a moment later, the area around the execution platform was directly locked down. An incomparably powerful army from the Jialan monarch city appeared, locking down the entire area. The area was so vast that even a peak-stage immortal emperor's immortal sense could sense it. Immortal emperors appeared in every direction. In the air, the immortal emperors guarding the various locations directly took out their emperor-ranked weapons. Resplendent light cascaded downwards, and in an instant, a supreme emperor might descended from the sky, enveloping the entire area. Everyone in this space was dumbfounded as they stared in shock at this scene. What was going on? Everyone. At this moment, the Jialan monarch spoke. His voice thundered through the entire space. Today I, Jialan, am here to capture bandits. If I offend all of you in any way, I hope that everyone won't blame me. The bandits are simply too arrogant, and I have no choice but to do this. From now onwards, everyone is to remain at your original location and not move. If not, you will be treated as bandits and killed on the spot. If you are killed by mistake, don't blame me. The Jialan monarch's voice suddenly turned cold and imposing. Naturally, if we verify that you guys aren't bandits, we will naturally allow you to leave. As long as everyone cooperates, there's no need to worry about being killed by mistake. This point, this monarch can guarantee. The hearts of everyone trembled. This Jialan monarch arranged such a formation. It was actually to force the bandits to show themselves. After that, he would lock down the entire space and investigate them one by one. In that case, this execution was all for the sake of waiting for the bandits to show themselves? In the crowd, Qin Wentian's heart also trembled. His expression changed, becoming extremely unsightly to behold. This Jialan monarch was truly ruthless. He arranged such a huge formation just to gamble that Qin Wentian would show himself? If he didn't show himself, the Jialan monarch would have wasted all his efforts. However, Qin Wentian came. Although he clearly knew that there might be a conspiracy waiting for him, this matter concerned the life and death of Princess Kitamura. Maybe the Jialan monarch would feel that he was a fool, but this was him, Qin Wentian. He had always been like this. Let's start the investigation. The Jialan monarch spoke. After that, the guards in the various locations started to call out names, allowing the immortal emperors to come before the immortal emperor. After that, the immortal emperor would personally inspect them. The method of inspection was very simple. The fluctuations of astral energy in their bodies, their law attributes, their astral souls. Even if someone changed their appearance, they wouldn't be able to hide from such a detailed inspection. Qin Wentian stared at the prison. Although he knew that this was a conspiracy, he still couldn't help but wonder if Princess Kitamura was inside the prison or not. He was still concerned about everything. However, the Jialan monarch didn't seem to have any intentions of opening the prison. The speed of the inspection was extremely fast. More and more experts were released. Sooner or later, it would be Qin Wentian's turn. At this moment, a figure flashed by, actually rushing into the sealed space. When the guards saw who it was, they were all stunned. They didn't stop him and allowed him to continue on his way. What are you doing here? The Jialan monarch frowned when he saw the figure who appeared before him. It was actually his daughter, Jialan Mingyue. Father. Jialan Mingyue walked to the side of the Jialan monarch. After that, She took out a divine weapon and suddenly stabbed it towards the Jialan monarch's eyes. This scene caused everyone to be stunned. The Jialan monarch was stunned as well. A violent burst of emperor might erupted forth as his eyes gleamed with a demonic light, directly shooting into Jialan Mingyue's mind. Scram! The Jialan monarch roared. However, Jialan Mingyue spoke. Jialan, you are too naive. As she spoke, the divine weapon in Jialan Mingyue's hand actually stabbed towards her own neck. The Jialan monarch's expression abruptly changed. He stretched out his palm and directly slapped Jialan Mingyue's hand. At the same time, the demonic light in his eyes grew even more intense. In Jialan Mingyue's mind, there seemed to be a lion guarding there. A gigantic beast that resembled a dragon, yet was not a dragon, yet was fighting against the lion. Jialan, the Emperor Palace is under attack. A voice rang out in the mind of the Jialan monarch. In his mind, the gigantic silhouette of a lion king appeared. His expression instantly turned ashen. This was a piece of news sent to him by one of his wives through a messaging crystal, directly transmitted into his mind through his immortal sense. His silhouette flashed as he grabbed Jialan Mingyue and soared into the air. He waved his hand. Let's return to the Emperor Palace. The black eyes of Crow flashed. After that, a deep smile appeared on his face as he spoke. Things are going to be interesting this time around. What an unexpected surprise. Jialan, I want to leave a group of people behind. The eyes of the Jialan monarch flashed. He instantly understood Crow's meaning. Crow wanted to lure the tiger away from the mountain. They were playing a scheme here, and the other party was doing the same as well. In addition, this time around the evil emperor was actually lured out. This indicated that not only did they lure out Qin Wentian, they also lured out a big fish, the core leader of the bandit group. But even so, since the Emperor Palace was under attack, he had no choice but to hurry back. After giving the order to leave a group of experts behind, he brought some people with him and sped towards the direction of the Emperor Palace. The eyes of the Crow Emperor flashed as he coldly stared at the surroundings. The Emperor Palace of the Jialan monarch was under attack, and his mind was in a mess. He almost fell for the trap, but the Emperor Palace of the Jialan monarch had nothing to do with him. Hence, he was very clear-headed. Even if the Jialan monarch wanted to attack the Emperor Palace, why did they send Jialan Mingyue here instead of killing her directly? Everything was done to disturb the heart of the Jialan monarch, causing him to make a mistake. The other party only had a single purpose, and that was to cover the escape of the Jialan monarch. In that case, among the people trapped here, there would definitely be someone they wanted to capture. In addition, this person seemed to be very important. Who would have thought that the Jialan monarch's random actions would actually achieve an unexpected goal? Things would truly be interesting this time around. Continue with the investigation. Don't miss out on a single one. The Crow Emperor coldly laughed. Qin Wentian, who was in the crowd, had a look of shock on his face. His heart wasn't calm at all. There was actually someone who attacked the Emperor Palace to rescue him? Other than Yi Qinyu, who else could it be? In the supreme ancient immortal realms, the only people he was acquainted with were Princess Kitamura and Yi Qinyu. Upon thinking of that beautiful silhouette, Qin Wentian sighed in his heart. He didn't understand why Yi Qinyu would come here. In the void, darkness descended, covering the sky and the sun, blocking out the sunlight. Everyone raised their heads, and it was as though they could see a gigantic black screen, continuously covering the sky. Very soon, the vast void was covered in darkness. Go! A voice rang out in Qin Wentian's mind. As expected, it was Yi Qianyu's voice. His silhouette flashed as numerous spatial gates appeared around him. As he stepped out, there seemed to be many silhouettes moving in different directions. The Crow Emperor inclined his head and stared at the sky. After that, his silhouette flashed as a pair of black wings appeared on his back. He soared up into the sky with lightning speed as a thunderous boom rang out. An incomparably intense collision rang out in the air. Qin Wentian inclined his head and glanced over. He knew that the Crow Emperor and Yi Qianyu were clashing. Emperor light flashed as beams of incomparably dazzling emperor-ranked weapons destroyed all of Qin Wentian's illusory bodies. However, Qin Wentian's true body continued to shuttle through spatial gates with extreme speed. When all the illusory bodies were destroyed, he already arrived at the boundary of the encirclement. There was an immortal emperor and a group of immortal kings standing guard there. Chapter 1559. It's him. The group of immortal kings stared at Qin Wentian as they instantly rushed over. Qin Wentian radiated the power of light. In just an instant, the law energy of light illuminated the area, piercing into the bodies of those immortal kings. Each beam of light contained a supreme sword intent, directly penetrating through the bodies of those immortal kings. Their bodies were instantly disintegrated as screams of misery rang out. Numerous immortal kings died on the spot. That immortal emperor who blocked the way had a look of shock on his face. He only saw Qin Wentian taking a step out as a spatial gate appeared. Qin Wentian appeared before him, and with a single glance, that immortal king seemed to have fallen into an eye-technique dimension. The resplendent sword might of light slashed down. He frenziedly tried to defend, but he only saw tens of thousands of swords shooting out in unison. There was no way for him to escape. Qin Wentian's power was absolute. There was no way to counter it. He could only watch on helplessly as his body was disintegrated bit by bit. With a rumbling sound, everywhere the light passed by, his body was disintegrated into nothingness. Qin Wentian seemed to have penetrated through his body. Everything happened in an instant. The spatial gate flashed again. Qin Wentian stepped out and fled. He came to the Jialan Emperor city, and initially thought that with his disguise arts, he would be able to deceive everyone and act according to the situation. Even here, it would be tough for the Jialan Monarch to capture him. However, he clearly underestimated the Jialan Monarch, one of the 9 monarchs of the supreme ancient immortal realms. The Jialan Monarch didn't even need a reason to do something, and might even waste his effort. He had already set up such a huge trap. As long as he came here, it would be hard for him to escape even if he grew wings. What Qin Wentian wanted to do was to escape from this invisible net. As long as he escaped from this region, it was impossible for the Jialan Monarch to seal the entire Emperor city. Given his illusionary arts, it would be as difficult as ascending the heavens for the Jialan Monarch to find him again. Beams of Emperor light shot towards Qin Wentian, incomparably resplendent. Chaotic law energy engulfed the area as thunderous rumbling sounds rang out. Qin Wentian initially wanted to borrow the power of the spatial gate to traverse the void. However, he directly slammed into a golden wall. After that, he only saw an immortal emperor descending from the sky. This immortal emperor radiated golden light, and was like an invincible god of war clad in golden armor. Qin Wentian raised his fist. In an instant, the great radiance art transformed into a resplendent divine fist of light, exuding boundless radiance. He punched out as the boundless light transformed into terrifying divine fists of light, blasting towards that immortal emperor. With just a single punch, the divine fist of light was unblockable. That initial stage immortal emperor, whose body seemed to be forged from gold, was instantly destroyed, killed by a single punch. So strong. The experts in the surroundings felt their hearts trembling. What kind of innate technique was that? Such power was simply heaven-shaking. The great radiance divine fist was like light, omnipresent, annihilating everything. Such an attack, no initial stage immortal emperor would dare to say that they would be able to block it. But even though Qin Wentian killed an initial stage immortal emperor, he was still intercepted. 2 mid-stage immortal emperors appeared, wielding resplendent emperor-ranked weapons. One of the mid-stage immortal emperors blasted out a bolt of green lightning that was incomparably bizarre, directly blasting into Qin Wentian's body. In an instant, Qin Wentian only felt his entire body going numb. His entire body trembled. Compared to direct attacks, this was even more fatal to Qin Wentian. He had an undying body and an astral soul with the law of life. He could be said to be undying. Even if ordinary attacks caused his body to shatter, he would be able to recover in a very short period of time. However, this strike actually caused his entire body to be paralyzed. In fact, even his soul felt the same way as his body. A gigantic heaven-splitting axe cleaved down, aiming for Qin Wentian. The axe glowed with violet lightning, resembling a lightning dragon that could destroy everything. Busy. Abruptly, Two terrifying bolts of black lightning shot towards the two mid-stage immortal emperors. The two of them inclined their heads as their expressions turned heavy. They couldn't be bothered with killing Qin Wentian anymore, and directly rushed towards the incoming attack. Yi Qianyu's body transformed into a myriad of shadows as she rushed towards Qin Wentian. Humph! Behind him, a towering destructive might bore down on him, terrifying to the extreme. The entire sky turned black as the pressure bore down on the world. The sound of explosions rang out unceasingly, as the millions of illusory figures were directly destroyed into nothingness. A terrifying black-colored ancient imprint directly descended from the sky, blasting into Yi Qianyu, who was rushing towards Qin Wentian. This caused Yi Qianyu's beautiful face to glow with a dark light, exuding an aura of death. Palace Mistress. Qin Wentian's silhouette flashed. The ancient tree coiled around Yi Qianyu as his life energy frenziedly flowed into her body. Fool! Yi Qianyu smiled, exuding boundless charm. However, the current Qin Wentian felt that her smile was no longer as tempting as before. In fact, it was filled with a poignant beauty. Palace Mistress, why are you doing this? Qin Wentian transmitted his voiceover. He didn't understand why Yi Qianyu was willing to expose herself for him, entering the tiger's den, and coming to the Jialan Emperor City. Could it be that she didn't know that the person the Jialan monarch wanted to deal with the most was none other than the leader of the bandits? Even though she made use of Princess Kitamura to set up a trap to capture him, her ultimate goal was still Yi Qianyu. However, she actually took the initiative to expose herself. Before this, although Yi Qianyu treated him very well and tried to rope him in, wasn't that because of his talent? Wasn't that because she wanted him to become her ally in the future? But now, she actually risked her life to come here. The reason you came here is also the reason I came here. Yi Qianyu smiled. A gentle wave of energy landed on Qin Wentian, pushing him away. After that, she once again transformed into a myriad of shadows, rushing towards the bandits. If you still don't leave, I still have to take care of you. It wouldn't be easy for me to escape. Yi Qianyu spoke softly. Her voice was as carefree as before. Qin Wentian felt speechless in his heart when he saw her blocking the attacks of the Crow Emperor and mid-stage immortal emperors for him. If he stayed here, he would only be a burden to Yi Qianyu. BZ. The spatial law energy fluctuated. Qin Wentian stepped out, directly traversing through space, moving towards the horizons. There were experts rushing over from all directions. With a roar of rage, an incomparably resplendent light radiated from him as the great radiance divine fist blasted out. Beams of holy light shot out, akin to sharp swords of light. Everywhere it passed by, everything would be destroyed. For those below the mid-stage of the immortal emperor realm, they had no threat to him at all. Turning his head back, he only saw Yi Qianyu being struck by that demonic whip. This strike seemed to have also lashed out at Qin Wentian's heart. Palace Lord. Qin Wentian really wanted to kill his way back. However, he was afraid that Yi Qianyu would be delayed because of him. Hence, he gritted his teeth and sped through space once more. Spatial gates appeared unceasingly, and after a few flashes, he had already left the battlefield. On the way back, he kept changing his appearance until he completely vanished from the immortal senses of his pursuers. At the same time, a huge battle also erupted in the Emperor Palace of the Jialan Monarch. The evil emperor wreaked havoc in the Emperor Palace, directly capturing many of the Jialan Monarch's sons and daughters. After that, he left when the Jialan Monarch arrived, avoiding a direct confrontation with the Jialan Monarch. The Jialan Monarch madly chased after the evil emperor, causing the entire Emperor City to be enveloped by a heavy pressure. In the Emperor City, Qin Wentian, who had changed his appearance once more, had been waiting for news from Yi Qianyu's side. However, he didn't receive any news at all. The ending of the battle seemed to have been sealed and no one knew of it. However, the people of the Lifefire Palace were all in an uproar. The bandit leader appeared, and it was actually a woman. Her cultivation base was extremely high and her strength was tyrannical to the extreme. The Lifefire Palace even sent out peak-stage immortal emperors to kill her. The night wind blew on his body, causing him to feel a chill. That beautiful lake was still as lively as ever. Even though a huge battle had erupted in the Emperor City, it still couldn't stop the passion of the tourists. Qin Wentian sat on a small boat, feeling the chill of the wind. He came to the place where he met with Princess Kitamura in the past. This was also the place where Yi Qianyu performed that world-shocking dance. He stared at the pavilion. The moonlight cascaded down as the melody of the zither rang out. There were still women dancing there, but they no longer exuded the magnificence of Yi Qianyu. However, that beautiful silhouette under the moonlight, that world-shocking dance, once again appeared in Qin Wentian's mind, unable to fade away even after a very long time. Just like what she said back then, after that night, it was very hard for him to forget her. Hug me. If you like it, I might not reject you. Maybe I don't mind being your concubine. Do you want to give it a try? Why you came here? I came here for the same reason. Numerous voices rang out in his mind. He came here for Princess Kitamura, because he cared about her. Yi Qianyu came here for him because she cared about him. He came here without any hesitation. However, he didn't see Princess Kitamura and implicated Yi Qianyu instead. What happened? A voice suddenly rang out in Qin Wentian's mind. Qin Wentian felt like he was struck by lightning as his entire person stiffened. This was the voice of Princess Kitamura, transmitted through his immortal sense. He took out his messaging crystal and sent a strand of his immortal sense in, speaking to Princess Kitamura. You weren't captured and beheaded by the Jialan Monarch? I was given a mission by the Lifefire Palace. I'm not allowed to bring any mission treasures, including my messaging crystal. Princess Kitamura replied. Qin Wentian's heart pounded violently as an expression of extreme pain appeared on his face. I understand. Qin Wentian replied. After that, no matter what Princess Kitamura said, he didn't reply. It was the same when he transmitted a message to Yi Qianyu. Yi Qianyu didn't reply as well. Qin Wentian, what's wrong exactly? What happened to you? Bai Mingyohuang's voice was filled with panic. However, Qin Wentian didn't seem to hear it. He walked into the boat and took out an emperor stone. After that, he sat down and started to inscribe. Law energy flowed out as the emperor stone transformed. Can you sculpt a portrait of me as well? Qin Wentian thought back to Yi Qianyu's voice. The sword in his hand slashed out unceasingly. Gradually, a beautiful silhouette appeared. This was an extremely beautiful statue that exuded a natural charm. Her countenance was unparalleled in the generations. As Qin Wentian sculpted, his law energy fluctuated. In the air, a resplendent beam of astral light cascading down on him. Unknowingly, his entire body was bathed in astral light. Chapter 1560. On the boat, the astral light shone resplendently, illuminating the lake as though it was daytime. Numerous gazes turned to Qin Wentian's boat. All of them felt their hearts trembling as great waves rose in their hearts. Stars descended from the sky, shining together with the constellations. This was a sign of breaking through to the immortal emperor realm. The aura of the young man sitting there soared as emperor light bathed him. The astral light around him grew brighter and brighter as his law energy grew stronger. This was a transformation, a breakthrough. Using sculpting to break through? Many people felt their hearts trembling. They had heard of many ways to break through, but it was extremely rare to hear of someone breaking through while sculpting. Also, the sculpting sword in the young man's hand was actually sculpting a gigantic emperor stone. On top of the emperor stone, a humanoid figure could be seen. This was a female that was extremely vivid and lifelike. A single smile from her could charm 100 people, exuding a myriad of emotions. She was a supreme beauty, causing the hearts of those who glanced at her to pound with excitement. What a beautiful female! Many people involuntarily felt their hearts trembling. Although it was just a sculpture, one could still see the beauty of the female. The true appearance of this female must surely be a breathtaking beauty. Was this young man thinking of her? Or could it be that this young man was heartbroken and pursued the goddess of his heart but failed? Hence, by sculpting here, his state of heart underwent a transformation due to a stroke of good fortune, causing him to break through? No one knew of all these. However, the female that was sculpted was already extremely beautiful. That young man didn't stop. He continued sculpting every corner, every detail, as though he wanted to perfect it. Her long dress fluttered in the wind. Her alluring figure was graceful, as well as her slender legs, extremely alluring. However, the crowd didn't feel that this young man had any intentions of profanity. Maybe, he was only trying to show the true face of this supreme beauty. His movements became very slow, and there was a hint of a smile at the corner of his eyes. Looking at the carved statue, his smile was gentle. However, the astral light grew more and more resplendent as the law energy enveloping him grew stronger and stronger. The surface of the lake was enveloped by the emperor's glow, attracting countless people over. Although there would occasionally be immortal emperors in the lake, it was extremely rare for them to release their emperor's glow to the extreme, causing such a huge commotion. Qin Wentian seemed to be immersed in the world of carving, completely forgetting where he was. He even forgot that he had unknowingly entered the state of cultivation, resonating with the stars in the sky and shining with them. This state was extremely wonderful, and it was also a kind of epiphany. Qin Wentian, who had forgotten everything and was immersed in guilt, suddenly entered this state while he was carving. "Can you also carve a portrait for me?" In Qin Wentian's mind, this voice rang out. Coupled with that amorous smile of hers, it would cause people to be infatuated with her, unwilling to part with her. But at that time, he only calmly avoided her and didn't reply. He also didn't carve a portrait for her. As the final stroke of the sword in his hand landed, it gradually dissipated. The sword transformed into astral light and dissipated into nothingness. Qin Wentian stared at the sculpture as a radiant smile appeared in his eyes. "The sculpture you wanted, I've already carved it for you." Qin Wentian smiled. It was like he was talking to Yi Qianyu. Sadly, if it was really Yi Qianyu, she would definitely reply and even try to tempt him. But right now there was only silence. At this moment, in the surroundings of the lake where Qin Wentian was on, numerous experts stood in the air, exuding terrifying auras. There were even immortal emperors among them. Emperor light shone down on them as they coldly stared at Qin Wentian before glancing at the statue in his hand. Was this the reason why the bandit leader wanted to kill his way here? Using Princess Kitamura to lure Qin Wentian, many people actually thought that Qin Wentian wouldn't appear. However, they actually obtained an unexpected joy. Not only did Qin Wentian show up, even the bandit leader appeared. There was also the gigantic lion, the evil emperor. They didn't expect that these people would be so foolish. "Qin Wentian, you were originally someone from the Jialan Monarch's territory, and originally had the chance to become a subordinate of the Jialan Monarch. Yet you ended up becoming a bandit instead. This is simply unforgivable. Now you should follow us to the Emperor Palace. Maybe, in consideration of your strength, the Jialan Monarch might show mercy and spare your life, allowing you to atone for your crimes." An immortal emperor spoke. Although Qin Wentian had disguised his appearance, how could they not know who the person on the boat was? Qin Wentian didn't say anything, he quietly sat on the boat. That immortal emperor nervously stared at Qin Wentian, staring at the emperor light. Although he appeared calm on the surface, his heart was filled with trepidation. This man's combat prowess was too terrifying. Before this, he could already kill immortal emperors when he was only at the immortal king realm. Now that his constellations shone with emperor light, his law energy was far stronger than before. This was a transformation. If it wasn't for the fact that he was wary of Qin Wentian's strength, how would he dare to waste words with Qin Wentian? In fact, he even said that the Jialan Monarch would show mercy to atone for his crimes. In truth, he was doing this to delay Qin Wentian. Very soon, the Jialan Monarch would arrive here personally. Not only for him, the experts in the surroundings also didn't dare to act recklessly. But earlier, the Jialan Monarch directly ordered them to capture Qin Wentian. What could they do? They could only brace themselves and descend. However, no one dared to fight. "Where is she?" Qin Wentian's gaze was still fixed on the statue as he calmly asked. It was like he didn't see the experts in the surroundings, didn't see that immortal emperor existence. Maybe in his eyes, there was no such existence at all. Everyone naturally knew who the she he was talking about was. That immortal emperor's expression changed. He didn't dare to defy the Jialan monarch's order, but if he could drag things out, he would do his best. After you meet the Jialan monarch, you will naturally know. Qin Wentian, come with me. I won't make things difficult for you. That immortal emperor's voice was calm, exuding an aura. This caused many people in the lake to sigh in admiration. This immortal emperor's aura was extraordinary, as expected of an immortal emperor subordinate to the Jialan monarch. Even when facing a bandit, he was still so magnanimous. Where is she? Qin Wentian didn't seem to have heard the immortal emperor's words. He calmly repeated his words. Although his voice was incomparably calm, that immortal emperor could feel the weight of his words. His expression instantly turned heavy as he stared at Qin Wentian. Follow me to the Emperor Palace, and you will be able to see her. In fact, you might even be able to see Princess Kitamura. As the sound of his voice faded, the statue in Qin Wentian's hand vanished. Qin Wentian slowly stood up and inclined his head, glancing at that immortal emperor. With just a single glance, that immortal emperor felt the heavens and earth changing. He fell into an illusion, and the scene he saw was actually the execution platform. As for him, he was chained to the platform. The terrifying chains penetrated through his body, locking him to the mountain ridge behind the execution platform. His entire body floated in the air, as though he was preparing to accept the baptism of death. No, this is an illusion. His will frenziedly told himself that this was fake, an illusion. He mustn't fall into it no matter what. But it was useless. He clearly knew that this was an illusion, but he had no way to break free. He was heavily injured and his life was in danger. His body was chained up and his energy was sealed. He could only wait for death. A sharp sword of light slashed down from the air, akin to an execution sword. He roared in rage as a terrifying might erupted from his body. However, he had no way to block that incomparably resplendent sword of light. With a piercing sound, the sword of light slashed down, annihilating everything. That immortal emperor only felt that he was nailed to the execution platform. But at this moment, the scene before him suddenly vanished. A gentle breeze blew by, but he could no longer feel the beauty of the scene before him. There was only fear and despair in his heart. Although this was an illusion, the sword of light that slashed down was real. With a splashing sound, the corpse of an immortal emperor fell into the beautiful lake. Not long ago, everyone still thought that this immortal emperor had an extraordinary demeanor. But in the blink of an eye, everything that happened caused them to tremble. So it turned out that this immortal emperor was merely pretending to be calm. He basically didn't dare to act. Just a single sword strike and he was killed. A pair of demonic and terrifying eyes floated in the air. This was a pair of extremely bizarre eyes. With a single glance, everyone in the surroundings fell into a miraculous illusion. They all appeared on the execution platform and became spectators. As for those subordinates of the Jialan monarch, they became criminals on the platform and were about to be executed. Those subordinates of the Jialan monarch all had expressions of extreme terror on their faces. Before this, they personally witnessed an immortal emperor being killed. In that case, what they were experiencing now should be the same as what that immortal emperor experienced. What did this mean? It was sufficient to cause them to shiver even though it wasn't cold. The truth was as such. When the execution sword slashed down, the thing they feared the most became reality. Numerous experts were slain in the air above the lake. This time around, the Jialan monarch's operation to target Qin Wentian truly had great rewards. He even managed to lure the bandit leader out. But to the experts under the Jialan monarch, wasn't this a calamity? Even many immortal emperors died. Not only that, even the son of the Jialan monarch was captured by the evil emperor. To the Jialan monarch, did he really win? In addition, everything was far from the conclusion. In the future, if everything could be restarted, even if the Jialan monarch didn't sit on the throne, he wouldn't have initiated this operation. In the lake, a gentle breeze blew over. Everyone awoke from the illusion. They only saw numerous experts turning into corpses as they fell into the lake. All of them could feel how cold the breeze was, so cold that it seeped into their bones. Their gazes turned over, staring at the lone boat once more. Indeed, the boat had become a lonely boat, empty and lonely. The people on the boat were no longer there. It was as though no one had ever appeared on the boat before. Chapter 1561. The Jialan monarch finally arrived, arriving in the airspace above the lake. When he saw the corpses in the lake, his expression was as ugly as it could be to behold. How long has it been? He already used his fastest speed to rush here, but he was still too late. Could an immortal king really be so powerful to this extent? Who can tell me what happened earlier? The Jialan monarch turned his gaze to the crowd on the dragon boat as he calmly asked. Reporting to the monarch, he has already broken through. He was carving in the lake when astral light descended from the sky. He has broken through to the immortal emperor realm. Someone spoke to the Jialan monarch. The Jialan monarch's eyes flashed with sharpness. How can this be possible? The Jialan monarch was one of the 9 monarchs of the Lifefire Palace, and was able to sit in this position at the mid-stage of the immortal king realm. There was no need to doubt his talent and strength. Other than this, he, the Jialan monarch, came from a supremely powerful power. In the Lifefire Palace, even the Lifefire Empyrean might not be able to suppress him. Hence, one could say that the Jialan monarch's knowledge was extremely vast, and he had seen many geniuses. However, Qin Wentian simply toppled everything he knew. When he first met Qin Wentian, he was only an immortal foundation cultivator. After that, he heard the news that Qin Wentian was a bandit, and that Qin Wentian was a peak-stage immortal king. At that time, he still doubted the authenticity of the news. Right now, Qin Wentian broke through to the immortal emperor realm? Was this a joke? Clearly no one was joking. No matter how audacious the people here were, they wouldn't dare to joke with a monarch at this moment. The gazes of everyone in the surroundings also proved everything. Qin Wentian had indeed broken through to the immortal emperor realm. In a short period of over 20 years, he broke through to the immortal emperor realm from immortal foundation. Was this possible? Originally, it should be impossible, but it actually happened. In that case, there was only one possibility. In truth, back then, Qin Wentian wasn't at the immortal foundation realm, but was an immortal king, a peak-stage immortal king. However, his concealment abilities were extremely strong. Even the Jialan monarch had no way to see through Qin Wentian's true cultivation base. If this was the case, it could explain the relationship between Qin Wentian and Princess Kitamura. An immortal emperor and a peak-stage immortal king. Issue an arrest warrant. Return to the imperial palace. The Jialan monarch waved his hand. After that, he returned to his emperor palace. He still had an extremely important matter to do. He had to mobilize troops from the Lifefire Palace. He already knew the identity of the bandits. They were very powerful, and now, this imperial city couldn't be left unguarded. The evil emperor and Qin Wentian were still outside. He definitely couldn't leave. Qin Wentian has always been in the emperor city. He was quietly waiting for news, waiting for Yi Qianyu's news. Several days later, more and more news began to circulate through the emperor city. During that battle, Yi Qianyu was injured and was surrounded by several immortal emperors. In the end, she managed to break out of the encirclement, but she still couldn't escape. Her pursuers found her and captured her. Her identity was also exposed after that. The palace mistress of Heavenly City's Thousand Feathers Palace, the #1 beauty of Heavenly City. Given the power of the Jialan monarch, it was naturally impossible for him to not find out. Hence, the Jialan monarch mobilized experts from the Lifefire Palace and headed to Heavenly City, preparing to uproot the Thousand Feathers Palace. Yi Qianyu was captured, and it was unknown where she was imprisoned. Most probably, these people wanted to play the same scheme again, using Yi Qianyu to lure the bandits out. However, this time around, the Jialan monarch didn't dare to be too intense. There was only one reason. The evil emperor captured several of his descendants and left the emperor city, choosing not to clash head-on with him. The tyrannical Lion King and evil emperor actually prepared a path of retreat. This caused the Jialan monarch's heart to burn with anxiety. The Jialan monarch even requested for the Lifefire Empyrean to use Yi Qianyu as a hostage. After that, he would find an opportunity to capture all the bandits in one fell swoop. However, the Lifefire Empyrean angrily reprimanded him for not doing his job well. Within the emperor city of the Jialan Monarch, a group of bandits actually dared to run amok, simply throwing the face of the Lifefire Palace. There were even several experts who were killed. If it wasn't for him sending the Crow Emperor to heavily injure Yi Qianyu and capture her, the Jialan Monarch might have fallen for their trap. With regards to the Jialan Monarch's request, the Lifefire Empyrean mercilessly rebuked him. As a monarch, it was one thing for him to not do his job well, but he actually dared to request to exchange the bandits for his loved ones. After all, these bandits weren't captured by him, the Jialan Monarch. In any case, although you captured the leader of the bandits, you didn't have anything to do with the Jialan Monarch. Not only so, the Jialan Monarch even suffered heavy losses. The immortal emperors who died were all his subordinates, and those who were captured were his loved ones. The Jialan Monarch was naturally incomparably angry in his heart, but he was helpless. He understood that he had to maintain his composure. He knew that the Lifefire Empyrean had always wanted to take him down, and was waiting for him to make a mistake. Although he was one of the 9 monarchs under the Lifefire Empyrean, only he himself understood how he obtained his position. It wasn't as simple as his strength. Today, the evil emperor finally appeared. He sent a message to the Jialan Monarch's Emperor Palace, telling him to bring Yi Qianyu to the appointed location for the exchange, or he would have to bear the consequences. The Jialan Monarch immediately made arrangements, but at this moment, the Lifefire Empyrean directly interfered, sending experts over. At the same time, they did a series of actions that made the Jialan Monarch unhappy. However, he had no way to refute them. On the appointed day, he led many experts to the appointed location, but he didn't bring Yi Qianyu along. Yi Qianyu was no longer under the control of the Jialan Monarch. When the Jialan Monarch left, Princess Kitamura and many experts from the Lifefire Palace came to the Jialan Monarch's Emperor Palace. The aura radiating from Princess Kitamura was extremely cold. Her entire face seemed to be covered in a layer of frost. Compared to the past, her demeanor seemed to have changed, becoming even colder and more beautiful. Her cultivation also grew stronger. She has already entered the mid-stage of the immortal emperor realm. However, there was no joy on Princess Kitamura's face. Ever since she came out of seclusion and learned of everything that happened, she felt a chill in her heart. The Lifefire Empyrean made perfect use of her once and still treated her very well, not forcing her to do anything. In fact, he didn't even mention that the person he wanted to kill was her, Princess Kitamura. But as long as one wasn't a fool, they would know that the person he wanted to kill was her. Qin Wentian knew this, hence, Qin Wentian came here. She went to meet with the Lifefire Empyrean, but the Lifefire Empyrean didn't mention anything about this matter. He only smiled and showed concern for her cultivation. What else could she say? What could she do? As the Lifefire Empyrean of the Hokage Sengoku Kingdom, the #1 genius in the Hokage Sengoku Kingdom, she had never been used like this before. She also deeply understood what sort of world the Supreme Ancient Immortal Realms was. There were many powerful powers that could control everything. But inside, there were many scheming and scheming. Biming. In the Jialan Monarch's Emperor Palace, the Crow Emperor glanced at Princess Kitamura and smiled. Congratulations on your cultivation base breaking through to the next level. Just a mid-stage immortal emperor. Princess Kitamura's expression was cold. She didn't really care about the Crow Emperor. Crow was still smiling as he stared at Princess Kitamura. Although as a peak-stage immortal emperor of the Supreme Ancient Immortal Realms, Crow had seen countless beauties before, he couldn't help but to say that it was extremely rare to see a peak-grade beauty like Princess Kitamura. Anyone who saw such a beauty would feel a sense of joy in their hearts. No wonder Jialan wanted to swallow her up for himself back then, treating her as his personal property, wanting to bring her into the harem of the Jialan Monarch Palace. Regardless of her beautiful countenance or her perfect figure, all of them were enough to cause people to drool. Biming, you have obtained the Lifefire Empyrean's favor. Your future would surely be boundless. A faint smile appeared on Crow's face, as though there was a deeper meaning in his words. I will naturally remember the Lifefire Empyrean's kindness. Princess Kitamura coldly spoke. Crow laughed before he continued in a low voice. You should know that the Liefire Empyrean has always been extremely unhappy with Jialan. Maybe in the future, you will have a chance to replace him and become one of the 9 monarchs, ruling over a region. Although the Crow Emperor was a peak-stage immortal emperor, he didn't feel that he was inferior to the Jialan monarch. However, there were only 9 positions among the 9 monarchs, and each of them had their own reasons. Although the status of working under the Liefire Empyrean was extraordinary, how could it be compared to the monarchs who ruled over a region? The 9 monarchs ruled over a vast region. Everything here was decided by the monarchs. This was definitely an extremely lucrative job. Do as the Liefire Empyrean says. Princess Kitamura calmly replied. After that, she walked away. The Crow Emperor stared at her beautiful back view as a faint smile appeared in his eyes. This woman and the one who was captured were 2 completely different kinds of beauties. Sadly, it wasn't easy to obtain her. MHM. At this moment, a cold light flashed in Crow's eyes. He turned his gaze towards the boundary of the Emperor Palace as a deep smile appeared on his face. His silhouette flashed, but not only did he not head there, he headed in the opposite direction instead. Outside the Emperor Palace, Qin Wentian's figure floated down. He didn't disguise himself and appeared with his original appearance. The instant he stepped into the Emperor Palace, several figures blocked his path, all of them staring at Qin Wentian nervously. Qin Wentian acted as though he didn't see them. He directly stepped out. His immortal sense enveloped the entire area, engulfing the Emperor Palace. Emperor light radiated from him, resplendent to the extreme. Everywhere he passed by, screams of misery could be heard as those guards were directly killed. This light was too resplendent, causing the Emperor Palace to tremble. Numerous experts soared through the air and someone spoke. Enemy attack, activate the grand formation of the Emperor Palace. Waves of dazzling light radiated outwards as boundless light cascaded downwards. The Emperor Palace of the Jialan monarch naturally had a protective formation. However, when the formation was activated, it wasn't as powerful as before. Before this, when the evil emperor descended, he had already controlled many experts and directly destroyed many of the formations from the inside. In a certain location in the Emperor Palace, a beautiful middle-aged woman stared at the light. After that, she sent her immortal sense into her messaging crystal, informing the Jialan monarch. Beside her, there was another woman. This woman was none other than Jialan Mingyue. Jialan Mingyue also stared at the direction of the light. Was he here? Was he really that fellow who broke through to the immortal foundation realm back then? In another direction, Princess Kitamura inclined her head and stared at the direction of the light as she sighed in her heart. Did he still come after all? Chapter 1562. Qin Wentian has arrived, arriving at the Emperor Palace. Everywhere the light passed by, it illuminated the heavens and earth, destroying everything. Many experts continued to surround Qin Wentian, but before they could even reach him, the boundless radiance of the light blasted their bodies apart, directly destroying them. Senior Crow. Someone called out loudly. However, the Crow Emperor didn't seem to hear it. Or to put it more accurately, he wasn't even in the Emperor Palace. Screams of misery rang out unceasingly. Qin Wentian continued advancing, killing his way into the depths of the Emperor Palace. An immortal emperor appeared. He controlled the formation of the Emperor Palace as beams of golden light shot towards Qin Wentian. However, Qin Wentian inclined his head and blasted out with his palms. Numerous golden arms pierced through the heavens and earth, akin to the fists of 10,000 Buddhas, directly shattering the beams of golden light. The countenance of that immortal emperor drastically changed. Although the formation was already damaged, such an attack was still too terrifying. With a wave of his hand, a gigantic golden beast swooped down, blotting out the sky. Its radiance was incomparably resplendent, crushing everything below it. Qin Wentian inclined his head, his eyes cold to the extreme. He lifted his hand and blasted out a war god fist, containing the might of 10,000 Buddhas bowing to him, shaking the heavens and earth. Roaring Buddhic light shot up into the sky, and with a deafening boom, that golden beast was directly penetrated by the boundless might of the fist. After that, it transformed into a golden screen of light and vanished. Qin Wentian's long robes fluttered in the wind. He stepped out, traversing through the air, and appeared before that immortal emperor. With a single glance, the might of light radiated from him, illuminating everything. In just an instant, that immortal emperor closed his eyes as fresh blood flowed from them. After that, his body transformed into motes of light as he screamed miserably. That immortal emperor's eyes were filled with blood as he stared hatefully at Qin Wentian. He simply didn't dare to believe that there was such a great disparity between them. They were both initial stage immortal emperors. Finally, that immortal emperor transformed into motes of light and vanished as though he never existed. Qin Wentian directly walked past them and continued forward. The protectors of the Emperor Palace were all trembling in fear. No one dared to obstruct Qin Wentian, allowing him to continue on his way. After entering the depths of the Emperor Palace, Qin Wentian came to the core region. If he continued forward, it would be the Jialan monarch's harem. At this moment, a powerful mid-stage immortal emperor appeared before Qin Wentian. His countenance was extremely cold. "Where is she?" Qin Wentian asked. "Why are you acting so wantonly? Could it be that you want to harm her to death?" That mid-stage immortal emperor coldly spoke. Qin Wentian didn't say anything, and directly stepped forward. His eyes blinked as an eye technique sealed the heavens and earth, isolating the emperor light. That mid-stage immortal emperor inclined his head and stared at the sky. He felt as though he had fallen into a pair of eyes. Qin Wentian walked towards him. His expression was extremely cold, like a king of slaughter. Boom. Qin Wentian was bathed in emperor light as he punched out. The great radiance divine fist illuminated everything, blasting forth in all directions, ignoring everything. The expression of that mid-stage immortal emperor drastically changed. The great radiance divine fist ignored all distance, destroying everything, shattering his attack. His defenses were instantly destroyed as a look of despair appeared on his face. After that, as a mid-stage immortal emperor, he was directly destroyed by that tyrannical attack. From afar, Princess Kitamura stood there, her long hair fluttering in the wind. Her beautiful eyes stared at Qin Wentian, who was enveloped by the light. He has already broken through to the immortal emperor realm, and was even more extraordinary compared to the past. He gradually revealed his true magnificence. Even when facing a mid-stage immortal emperor, he was still so tyrannical, sweeping through everything. That great radiance divine fist that illuminated everything, other than the great radiance divine fist, was infused with many other attribute energies. It was absolutely tyrannical. She stood at her original location and didn't move. She also believed that Qin Wentian had already seen her. But at this moment, how could they meet? Princess Kitamura could be considered someone from the Lifefire Palace. As for Qin Wentian, he wasn't simply a bandit now. He even killed his way into the Emperor Palace of the Jialan Monarch, one of the 9 monarchs. At the very least, the two of them mustn't be too close on the surface. Princess Kitamura didn't try to stop Qin Wentian. In fact, she didn't even say anything. She only silently watched on. Right now, she already knew the entire story. Qin Wentian came to the Jialan Emperor City because of her, and was surrounded by enemies. Yi Qinyu came to rescue him, but was heavily injured and captured. What reason did she have to stop Qin Wentian? As for the people in the Emperor Palace, none of them dared to act against Qin Wentian. They all hid far away and stared at the scene before them with trepidation. Their eyes were filled with incomparable rage. The Jialan monarch personally led people to deal with the bandits. The Crow monarch and Princess Kitamura from the Lifefire Palace were both in the Emperor Palace, but they actually chose to ignore them? Only they would be able to stop Qin Wentian. If the Jialan monarch learned of this matter, it was unknown what he would do. Most probably, he would make a commotion all the way to the Lifefire Palace. But when they thought of the Crow monarch and Princess Kitamura's subordinates, they couldn't help but feel a chill down their spines. Was the Jialan monarch planning to borrow Qin Wentian's hands to do something? In the inner chambers of the Emperor Palace, Qin Wentian arrived. When Jialan Mingyue and her mother, the Jialan monarch's concubine Emolan, saw Qin Wentian's appearance, the expressions in their eyes changed. Emolan was still a little better. After all, she was an immortal emperor, and had an extraordinary state of heart. Jialan Mingyue's expression kept changing. She stared fixedly at the handsome face of Qin Wentian. This was Qin Wentian's original appearance. When the radiance enveloped him, Qin Wentian, who cultivated the life attribute radiance, was simply too outstanding. Right now he was extremely handsome, and it was precisely because of his handsomeness that Jialan Mingyue wanted to take him in as a subordinate back then. However, Qin Wentian rejected her, leading to everything that happened after that. Back then, Jialan Mingyue was bestowed a city by her father, and became the city lord. How could she look up to two unaffiliated cultivators? Even though one of them, Princess Kitamura, was an immortal emperor, she didn't feel too much fear because her father was the monarch. However, never in her wildest dreams did she expect that things would change so quickly. Right now, Princess Kitamura could already be considered someone from the Lifefire Palace. Even her father didn't dare to casually offend her. As for Qin Wentian, he became a powerful bandit, killing his way into the Emperor Palace with a cultivation base at the initial stage of the Immortal Emperor realm, right in front of her. How ironic was this? Where is she? Qin Wentian's expression was cold to the extreme as he stared at the two of them. Qin Wentian, back then you were an esteemed guest of my Lifefire Palace. Why must you become a bandit? If you are willing to repent, I can still persuade the monarch to let bygones be bygones. After all, with your talent, even if you joined the Lifefire Palace in the future, you would still be highly regarded. In the supreme ancient immortal realms, people like you are the most important. Immortal Empress Molin's beautiful eyes were as calm as ever as she spoke. Qin Wentian's expression didn't change at all. If the Lifefire Palace valued geniuses, they might not care about the Jialan monarch's loss. But was it possible for the Jialan monarch to let bygones be bygones? Even if the Jialan monarch could let bygones be bygones, he wouldn't be so magnanimous. His mocking gaze turned to Jialan Mingyue. His eyes were cold, gleaming with resplendent light. When his gaze landed on Jialan Mingyue actually didn't dare to look at his eyes. His eyes were too piercing, but she still stubbornly endured it, staring straight at Qin Wentian. Esteemed guest. Why did I become a bandit? Shouldn't you guys be clearer than anyone? Qin Wentian's voice was filled with mockery. He actually said such ridiculous words. Did Jialan Mingyue think that he didn't know what mining meant? If it wasn't for Jialan Mingyue sending him to mine, everything that happened later wouldn't have happened. Jialan Mingyue's expression grew even more unsightly. All of this started because of her. If it wasn't for her sending Qin Wentian to mine, none of these things would have happened. What do you want to do? If you really kill us, my father will use all methods at his disposal to kill you and that demonic lover of yours. Jialan Mingyue's expression was malevolent as she spoke. Similarly, I will also use all methods at my disposal to kill your father. Qin Wentian coldly spoke. I'll ask you one last time. Where is she now? She has already been teleported away by the Lifefire Palace, and is no longer in this Emperor City. It's basically impossible for you to save her unless you slaughter your way into the Lifefire Palace. This isn't the intention of my husband, it's the intention of the higher-ups. Regardless of whether you kill us or not, you won't be able to change the current situation. The Molin Immortal Empress stared at Qin Wentian. I also know that the hatred between you and my husband is very deep. But at the very least, you are still in a disadvantageous position now. If you kill us, you will only implicate the bandit leader. You better think thrice before you act. Qin Wentian radiated the power of light. He glanced at Jialan Mingyue. Even initial-stage immortal kings are so unruly. If you are allowed to live, I wonder how many people would you harm in the future? Qin Wentian still remembered that back then, his comrade Yang Yun, who was mining together with him, had offended Jialan Mingyue and caused her entire family to suffer misfortune. When the light landed on Jialan Mingyue's countenance turned as pale as paper. She stretched out her hands to block the light as she screamed, "Mother, save me!" Emperor might gushed forth from the Molin Immortal Empress. Although she knew it was impossible for her to defeat Qin Wentian, she still disregarded everything and acted when she saw her daughter in such a state. Qin Wentian waved his hand. In an instant, the light shot into the Molan immortal empress. Her body stiffened as the terrifying power of light ravaged her body. Spatial vines shot out, wrapping around her body. As for Jialan Mingyue, her screams of agony rang out. Her body slowly dissipated within the light. Her beautiful face had long become twisted and contorted, turning into nothingness. Mingyue. Molan forgot the pain on her body. She stared at the vanishing figure and called out loudly. Her gaze was no longer calm. Her eyes were filled with hatred when she stared at Qin Wentian. Qin Wentian had no expression on his face. One of the 9 monarchs, the Jialan monarch, was lofty, thinking that he could control the fate of others. Jialan Mingyue was the same as well. She had never placed him, a minor character who just arrived in the supreme ancient immortal realms, in her eyes. If it wasn't for Yi Qianyu, if it wasn't for him breaking through to the immortal emperor realm, he would have long been squashed to death like an ant. In fact, he wouldn't even be able to leave a mark in the hearts of these people. What impudent bandits, they actually dared to kill their way into the emperor palace. A cold voice rang out. From afar, a surge of destructive energy gushed over. The Crow immortal emperor roared as he rushed over. His arrival was truly timely. Chapter 1563. Molan was controlled by Qin Wentian. Her eyes were cold as she stared at the Crow Emperor, who was rushing over. Clearly, he wanted to allow Qin Wentian to continue his massacre in the Emperor Palace. Did the Livefire Empyrean want to act against the Jialan clan? He was actually targeting them in such an obvious manner. The Jialan monarch went to capture the bandits. What would he do after he returned and learned of the situation here? He would definitely be enraged. Release my sister-in-law. The Crow Emperor radiated a terrifying black light as his destructive might enveloped this entire space. The entire Emperor Palace was enveloped by his might as he stared at Qin Wentian with his pitch-black eyes. Sister-in-law. Molan's eyes were bloodshot as she coldly stared at the Crow Emperor. The Crow Emperor also stared at her and continued. What a brazen bandit, he actually dares to act so brazenly. Qin Wentian stared at the Crow Emperor in the air as his eyes flashed with an intense killing intent. Back then, it was none other than this Crow Emperor who appeared and injured Yi Qianyu. Also, the fact that Yi Qianyu was captured definitely had something to do with this Crow Emperor. Boundless astral light cascaded down on him. Qin Wentian was bathed in astral light as the supreme radiance of light radiated from him, completely overshadowing the other law energies around him. Release my sister-in-law and allow yourself to be captured. The Crow Emperor coldly spoke. What sort of character was he? Although his talent couldn't be compared to the Jialan monarch, his cultivation base was higher, at the peak stage of the Immortal Emperor realm. At the Immortal Emperor realm, the disparity of a single level was exceedingly great. Even if Qin Wentian's combat prowess was heaven-defying and could kill mid-stage Immortal Emperors, he would still die if he fought against the Crow Emperor. Princess Kitamura stared at the confrontation between the two parties. Her eyes were as cold as ever as she stared at Qin Wentian. This was the Crow Emperor, a peak-stage Immortal Emperor. Would Qin Wentian be able to contend against him? The Crow Emperor made his move. Law energy erupted as an incomparably gigantic demon beast appeared behind him. It was actually a black crow. This crow was incomparably black, and had a gigantic body that blotted out the sky. Its eyes were a deathly gray and filled with death energy, extremely terrifying. This was a black crow of death. Its deathly gray eyes stared at Qin Wentian. At this moment, Qin Wentian had an illusion that the eyes of death wanted to engulf him, causing him to fall into a state of death. Just one look was enough to kill. The laws of light and life circulated frenziedly around Qin Wentian. An extremely dense life energy gushed forth from him, resisting the corrosion of the death energy. The Crow Emperor's expression was extremely cold. His law domain manifested as a deathly gray death law domain appeared, turning the entire space black. In this region, screeching sounds rang out unceasingly. The entire domain was actually filled with black crows, blotting out the sun. Each of the black crows exuded an aura of death, capable of feasting on vitality. There were simply too many of them, blotting out the sky. Those countless black crows of death directly lunged towards Qin Wentian. The great light radiating from Qin Wentian was pushed to the extreme. An incomparably gigantic ancient tree manifested behind Qin Wentian, manifesting a constellation formed from his astral soul. That was an incomparably gigantic ancient tree of life. Rustling sounds rang out as it grew in all directions, exuding an extremely exuberant aura of life. In addition, the branches and leaves of those vines were even sharper than swords. They gleamed with light as they lunged towards the black crows of death, killing them unceasingly. The sounds of crows of death rang out unceasingly. There were simply too many black crows. So many that there was no end to them. Qin Wentian's radiant light radiated from him, slaying the crows of death unceasingly. The number of black crows of death decreased unceasingly, but there was no way for him to destroy them like how he did against initial stage immortal emperors. The defense of these black crows of death was actually so strong to a shocking extent. Numerous ancient golden Buddhas appeared, radiating intense Buddhic light, illuminating the world. Numerous gigantic Buddhic palm imprints blasted out, crushing the black crows of death. Qin Wentian floated in the air. He stretched out his palm as God's hand erupted forth, blotting out the sky, destroying all existences. The black crows of death had no way to reach him. The Crow Emperor seemed to have transformed into a Crow King. His gray eyes coldly stared at Qin Wentian as he blasted out with his palms. In an instant, the black crows of death unleashed even more ferocious attacks. Countless sharp claws slashed towards Qin Wentian. The claws of these black crows of death not only contained a powerful will of death, they also contained an indomitable sharpness. Their claws gleamed with a silver light, wanting to penetrate through the heavens and earth. Aiming for Qin Wentian. Qin Wentian lifted his hands and blasted out with the divine light fist. The boundless fist of light penetrated through everything, colliding with the incoming attack, shattering it. However, the attacks of the Crow Emperor didn't stop there. He blasted out more black death imprints. Even before the imprints landed, it already caused people to feel a sense of doomsday. It was like under these death imprints, death would be inevitable. God's hand blasted out, containing a supreme might. It collided with the black death imprints of the Crow Emperor, transforming into beams of dazzling light that were destroyed together. The countenance of the Molan immortal emperor, who was restrained by Qin Wentian, had already turned ashen. If it wasn't for Qin Wentian infusing his life force into her, she would already be a dead person. When she personally witnessed the battle between the Crow Emperor and Qin Wentian, great waves of shock rose up in her heart. In fact, she was thinking that back then if her daughter, Jialan Mingyue, didn't offend Qin Wentian and instead befriended him, Qin Wentian might have been able to become the strongest support for her husband, the Jialan monarch. In fact, even though he was only at the initial stage of the immortal emperor realm, he was already strong enough to fight alongside the Jialan monarch. However, such a character, as well as someone as outstanding as Bai Mingyu Huang, were actually pushed to the opposing side. Right now, they were even made use of by the Li-Fire Empyrean, causing the Emperor Palace to be in such a miserable state. From this, one could very well imagine how much power the Jialan monarch, one of the 9 monarchs, had. If he made another mistake, the Li-Fire Empyrean could casually find an excuse to remove him from his position. This was truly an ironic matter. His daughter, Jialan Mingyue, was unruly and willful. The Jialan monarch was also fond of women, leading to the current situation. Right now, Crow's expression was extremely cold. His pitch-black death eyes were terrifying to the extreme. An initial stage immortal emperor with such a great disparity in their cultivation bases was actually able to fight against him? He coldly snorted as his death intent grew even stronger. The black crow flew into a frenzy. Qin Wentian stretched out his hands as resplendent law energy circulated frenziedly around him. His palms shone with a dazzling golden Buddhic light as boundless runes interweaved and blasted out at the same time. 2 gigantic palm imprints directly soared through the air, directly arriving before Crow, shooting out with lightning speed. Scram! The Crow Emperor roared and blasted out a death imprint. However, due to his haste, the death imprint was destroyed and his body was actually forced back. His expression involuntarily turned even colder. Qin Wentian's attack was actually able to ignore the spatial laws descending upon him, infusing spatial energy into his palm imprints. This caused him to be caught off guard, and was almost at a disadvantage. The Crow Emperor's gaze was terrifying, but the eyes of the gigantic black crow behind him were even more terrifying. The Crow Emperor opened his mouth and spat out a divine weapon. It was actually a deathly gray banner of death. For a period of time, the wails of ghosts and howls of wolves rang out as death chi permeated the air. The black crows actually continued to increase in size as the death energy within them grew denser and denser. Enough. A cold voice drifted over. Crow turned his gaze over only to see Princess Kitamura floating over. Very soon, she arrived in this space as her beautiful figure floated in the air. Beiming, what do you mean by this? The Crow Emperor coldly spoke. You should understand. Princess Kitamura spoke. After that, she stared at Qin Wentian and transmitted her voice. You better leave quickly. You won't be able to win against the Lifefire Palace. If you want revenge, come back again in the future. Qin Wentian glanced at Princess Kitamura. He naturally understood that Princess Kitamura was doing this for his own good. However, should he leave just like that? Yi Qinyu was captured because of him, and it was unknown whether she was dead or alive. Could he still leave? Beiming, the Lifefire Palace Lord has always treated you well. Why are you siding with him? Crow stared at Princess Kitamura as he spoke. The death intent radiating from him gushed towards her as evil intent flashed in his eyes. He was actually prepared to act against Princess Kitamura as well. The black crows all flew towards Princess Kitamura in a frenzy. Princess Kitamura's eyes were extremely cold. Formless currents of chi engulfed the heavens and earth. She gave a loud roar as her long hair fluttered in the wind. The black crows went berserk, circling around her before turning around and rushing towards the Crow Emperor. You can control the dead? The eyes of the Crow Emperor narrowed as he stared at Princess Kitamura. I've already said enough. Princess Kitamura's voice was ice cold. It's too late. At this moment, the Crow Emperor coldly laughed. A terrifying aura gushed forth as resplendent beams of light shot down from the sky. A group of experts appeared in the Emperor Palace. Qin Wentian glanced over as his eyes froze. He saw the Jialan Monarch. The Jialan Monarch's expression was extremely ugly to behold. His killing intent surged as he stared fixedly at Qin Wentian. However, he didn't act. Beside him, there seemed to be a few supremely powerful characters. In addition, behind them, there was a prison where the evil emperor and several other immortal emperors were imprisoned. Yi Qinyu's sedan bearers were all imprisoned as well. All of them were actually captured. They were all people from the Thousand Feathers Palace. Princess Kitamura turned pale when she saw this scene. This was the Lifefire Palace forcefully interfering. The Jialan Monarch clearly didn't have such power. The immortal emperors around him were all peak-stage immortal emperors. Princess Kitamura had met them before. They were all immortal emperors of the Lifefire Palace, subordinates of the Lifefire Empyrean. As expected, the Lifefire Palace was the mastermind behind this. In fact, they didn't even tell her about this. After all, everyone knew that she was acquainted with Qin Wentian. The Lifefire Palace and the Jialan Monarch were using her to lure Qin Wentian over. How could they tell her about this operation? Chapter 1564. Even the evil emperor was captured. They made an agreement with the Jialan Monarch, preparing to exchange hostages and rescue Yi Qianyu, but clearly, their plan failed. The Lifefire Palace sent experts to interfere in the dark, capturing the evil emperor and the others in one fell swoop. Roar! A low-sounding roar rang out from the evil emperor's mouth. His aura was extremely weak and his demonic eyes were dripping with blood. Clearly he was injured. When he saw Qin Wentian, he transmitted his voice. Quickly leave. Qin Wentian only heard this voice when he saw several peak-stage immortal emperors surrounding him. The Jialan Monarch stepped out and coldly spoke, release her. He was naturally referring to the Molan immortal emperor, who was captured by Qin Wentian. At this moment, the Molan immortal emperor was also in a miserable state. She was on the verge of death and could die at any moment. Clearly, in the battle earlier, although she wasn't the Crow Emperor's target, she was still greatly affected. Qin Wentian's gaze slowly turned over, landing on a person behind the Jialan monarch. This person was the barbarian emperor. He actually wasn't imprisoned. His eyes were extremely cold as he stared at Qin Wentian, as though there was an irreconcilable grudge between them. You betrayed the Thousand Feather Palace? Qin Wentian coldly stared at the barbarian emperor. Qin Wentian, a wise man, submits to circumstances. This time, the barbarian emperor has redeemed himself. I will naturally report to the Lifefire Empyrean to ensure that he doesn't die. A middle-aged immortal emperor beside the Jialan monarch spoke. His cultivation base was extremely high, a peak-stage immortal emperor. He exuded an imposing aura, and seemed to be the leader of this group. A traitor who could betray his master. You guys actually dare to accept him? Qin Wentian coldly glanced at him. Qin Wentian. The barbarian emperor's voice was cold to the extreme. I didn't betray Yi Qinyu. I treated her so well and fought alongside her, even becoming a bandit. To think that in her heart, I can't even be compared to you. How laughable. I've known her for so many years, but she repeatedly berated me because of you. And now, she even ended up like this. Qin Wentian, all of this is because of you. You fought for her and became a bandit because of her? Qin Wentian mockingly laughed. Although I don't know what you all experienced in the past, I'm sure that if it wasn't for Yi Qinyu's father, someone like you wouldn't have your current cultivation base, and wouldn't have your status in the Thousand Feathers Palace. Barbarian Emperor, go to hell. As the sound of Qin Wentian's voice faded, his eyes suddenly turned incomparably demonic. A pair of terrifying eyes appeared, and the barbarian emperor only felt that he had fallen into the space created by Qin Wentian's eye technique. He howled and retreated. Impudent. That peak-stage immortal emperor roared in rage. He lifted his palm and blasted out with it. Beams of terrifying emperor light flashed unceasingly, but they were completely unable to affect Qin Wentian. With a glance, the barbarian emperor was enveloped by the resplendent light as he screamed in agony, filled with terror. You don't deserve to live. Qin Wentian's voice drilled into his ears. This was the last thing he heard before he vanished into nothingness under the illumination of the light. Qin Wentian was also blasted by the incoming energy, causing his body to shatter. However, his fearsome undying law energy and life law energy enveloped him, allowing him to recover swiftly. This caused the immortal emperor who was staring at him to have a look of shock on his face. As for the death of the barbarian emperor, they didn't seem to care much about it. It was just a traitor, and he was merely an initial stage immortal emperor. So what if he died? It was just right for Qin Wentian to kill him. Qin Wentian, do you really want to die so much? That peak stage immortal emperor coldly spoke. You want to kill me? Just do it. Qin Wentian coldly spoke. But at this moment, Princess Kitamura stepped out again, blocking Qin Wentian's path. Dark North. That peak stage immortal emperor stared at Princess Kitamura. Princess Kitamura's expression was like ice. She didn't say anything, using her actions to express everything. Princess Kitamura dares to oppose the Lifefire Empyrean? Kill her as well. The Jialan monarch's killing intent was extremely strong. But the Molan immortal emperor was still in the hands of Qin Wentian. He didn't dare to act recklessly. Also, the things that happened earlier still caused him to feel incomparable pain in his heart. Those hostages captured by the evil emperor were all killed. Because the people the Lifefire Empyrean sent weren't here to negotiate. They directly acted, completely disregarding the life and death of his descendants. They only cared about the ending. According to their words, capturing the bandits was more important than anything else. From this, one could very well imagine how the Jialan monarch was feeling right now. Him now, if he had enough strength, he might really kill his way into the Lifefire Palace. The Lifefire Empyrean borrowed the strength of these bandits and Qin Wentian to take away half of his life. Although it was done in passing, the Lifefire Empyrean was simply too ruthless. Although he knew that the Lifefire Empyrean was a ruthless and ruthless character, he didn't expect that today, the Lifefire Empyrean would be so ruthless. Impudent. A peak-stage immortal emperor at the side coldly spoke. The Jialan monarch narrowed his eyes when he heard that. No matter what, he was one of the 9 monarchs. Even if the peak-stage immortal emperor was someone close to the Livefire Empyrean, he shouldn't be so merciless as to berate him, right? As expected, the Livefire Empyrean wanted to act against him. If he knew this would happen, he wouldn't have fought for this position back then, and wouldn't have fallen into such a situation. Dark North's talent is outstanding, and the Livefire Empyrean has always regarded him highly. Qin Wentian. Although you are a bandit, the Livefire Empyrean cherishes talent. Maybe he might give you a path, allowing you to work for the Livefire Empyrean and atone for your crimes. What do you think? That peak-stage immortal emperor calmly spoke. At this moment, the Jialan monarch's body trembled. He was incomparably enraged. Protector, what do you mean by this? The Jialan monarch's voice turned sinister. The person beside him was a protector of the Livefire Palace, and was someone close to the Livefire Empyrean. His words, from a certain perspective, represented the Livefire Empyrean's attitude. If not, recruiting bandits was such a huge matter. Without the Livefire Empyrean's approval, he would definitely not dare to say such a thing. Qin Wentian was a bandit and caused such a huge commotion. He even killed his way into the Emperor Palace of one of the 9 monarchs, and killed his loved ones. Right now, the Livefire Empyrean actually wanted to recruit Qin Wentian for his own use? How ridiculous was this matter? At this moment, the Jialan monarch only felt a chill down his spine. The Livefire Empyrean was even more ruthless and venomous than he had imagined. Qin Wentian's eyes gleamed with sharpness as he stared at the protector in bewilderment. He didn't expect that the protector would say such a thing. Princess Kitamura, who was beside him, also didn't expect this. She stared at this scene in a daze. The Livefire Empyrean's thoughts were truly so deep that it was terrifying. Was he trying to drive the Jialan monarch crazy? However, given Qin Wentian's personality, how could he possibly agree to this? Can you all spare Yi Qianyu? Qin Wentian suddenly spoke. Princess Kitamura's beautiful eyes flashed with a slight fluctuation before returning to normal. This seemed to be more in line with his personality. If it was for Yi Qianyu, he would definitely compromise. However, that protector shook his head. I still have my principles when doing things. Yi Qianyu is the leader of the bandits. She has to take responsibility for this matter. If not, even if this matter was reported to the Realm Lord, the Livefire Empyrean wouldn't be able to give an explanation. However, you guys were bewitched by the bandit leader. As long as you guys are willing to turn over a new leaf, the Livefire Empyrean might still give you guys a chance. The protector didn't just refer to Qin Wentian. It also included the evil emperor and the others. This caused the eyes of everyone in the prison to flash with a strange light. What did these people mean by this? Baiming, you are acquainted with Qin Wentian. Why don't you persuade him? Such an opportunity, if he misses it, only death awaits him. This choice is extremely simple. That immortal emperor stared at Baiming Yuhuang as he spoke. Qin Wentian. Princess Kitamura's beautiful eyes stared at Qin Wentian. Those cold eyes of hers now contained a hint of warmth. Although she didn't say anything, her eyes conveyed what she wanted to say. She naturally didn't wish for Qin Wentian to die. If you want revenge, you can do so after you grow stronger. Why don't you compromise now? Princess Kitamura transmitted her voiceover. Qin Wentian's aura was as cold as ever. He didn't say anything. As for the Jialan monarch, who was not far away, he was on the verge of exploding. These people from the Livefire Palace were smacking his face right in front of his face. Such a death grudge was actually resolved with a single sentence. Allowing the Livefire Palace to make use of him? The lines on his face were twitching. He forcibly endured the urge to explode. However, it was extremely painful for him to do so. Qin Wentian, you were too impulsive for my sake, and ended up in such a state. Isn't that enough? If you act impulsively one more time, you will die, the people from the Qinyu Palace will die, and I will die as well. Could it be that I can just stand by the side and watch? Do you want all of us to die together with you? Princess Kitamura walked towards Qin Wentian. Her beautiful eyes were still staring at him as she transmitted her voiceover. Qin Wentian's heart trembled. Should he compromise? He clenched his fists tightly and stared at the protector. What about Yi Qianyu? How do you all plan to deal with her? I don't have the authority to deal with her. This will have to depend on the Lifefire Empyrean's will. However, if you are willing to serve the Lifefire Empyrean, you can plead for mercy for her. The Lifefire Empyrean is benevolent and should give her a path of survival. However, it's impossible for him to let her go. She caused a huge commotion here, and is also the daughter of the Knight Empyrean. The protector spoke. The daughter of the Knight Empyrean, a subordinate of the Knight Empyrean. Why would the Lifefire Empyrean dare to use her? What does he intend to do exactly? Qin Wentian's eyes flashed. If he could protect Yi Qianyu's life, there would be hope in the future. I've been in the Lifefire Palace for some years, and the Lifefire Empyrean is extremely powerful. He most probably wants to keep Yi Qianyu alive and use her to restrain all of you. The Lifefire Empyrean naturally doesn't want to use all of you simply because of your talent. From what I know, there's a high possibility that he wants to make use of the conflict between you and the Jialan Monarch to deal with those people behind the Jialan Monarch, becoming his chess pieces. Princess Kitamura transmitted her voiceover. In order to persuade Qin Wentian, she spoke a lot more. Lifefire Empyrean. Qin Wentian naturally guessed the intentions of the Lifefire Empyrean. The Lifefire Empyrean wasn't worried at all that they would harbor hatred in their hearts. He was extremely scheming and extremely confident. I agree. Qin Wentian spoke. In the end, he still lowered his head. He had no choice but to lower his head and compromise. This place was the supreme ancient immortal realms. Chapter 1565. I don't agree. An incomparably cold voice rang out. The Jialan monarch's expression turned extremely heavy. He had been enduring it, but he was about to reach the end of his patience. A bandit who killed his way into his emperor palace, killing his loved ones, as well as those bandits who killed his children. The Lifefire Empyrean actually wanted to recruit them as his subordinates? What does this mean? What did they treat him, the Jialan monarch, as? He naturally wouldn't agree. He wanted nothing more than to kill Qin Wentian and the others on the spot. That peak stage immortal emperor coldly glanced at the Jialan monarch. He then spoke. Jialan monarch, this matter isn't something you can decide even if you don't agree or not. I will personally seek the Lifefire Empyrean's opinion. If the Lifefire Empyrean is willing, if you dare to disobey, you will have to bear the consequences yourself. As he spoke, that immortal emperor took out his messaging crystal and sent a strand of his immortal sense into it. Although the Jialan monarch had already guessed the result, he still stared intently at that immortal emperor. Not long after, that immortal emperor spoke. The Lifefire Empyrean has ordered me to bring my men to the Lifefire Palace to meet with him. Although the Jialan monarch already knew the ending, his expression was still extremely heavy when he heard this. He nodded. Fine. I will follow you all to meet with the Lifefire Empyrean. He truly wanted to see how the Lifefire Empyrean would recruit the bandits who killed his family into his subordinates. Sure. The immortal emperor nodded. He glanced at Qin Wentian. Release her first. Qin Wentian waved his hand and released Molan immortal emperor. The Jialan monarch's silhouette flashed as he appeared beside her, supporting her. Molan immortal emperor glanced at the Jialan monarch. As an immortal emperor, she was extremely weak right now. Even in her wildest dreams, she didn't expect that she would end up like this. Princess Kitamura remained by Qin Wentian's side. Although there were so many experts here, and there was no need for them to lie to Qin Wentian, she still stood together with Qin Wentian. If the people from the Lifefire Palace really wanted to act against Qin Wentian, she would accompany Qin Wentian. Perhaps even Princess Kitamura herself did not realize that the person whom she once hated, and even wanted to kill with her own hands, had now unknowingly become so closely connected with her. Let's go. That protector spoke. After that, the group of them flew towards a certain direction at the back of the Emperor Palace. There was a teleportation array there that could directly lead them to where the Lifefire Palace was located. In a world, The Realm Lord was in charge of the 9 world palaces, and each world palace was in charge of a total of 9 monarchs. These powers were all intertwined with each other, and were tightly connected. The subordinate powers had no way to command the superior powers to do anything. But as long as the superior powers gave an order, the subordinate powers would gather together in the shortest amount of time possible. Lifefire City was one of the 10 main cities of the lifelong realm. Other than the place where the Realm Lord was located, there were also the 9 supreme cities where the 9 world palaces were located. The Lifefire City where the Lifefire Palace was located was naturally one of them. There were many teleportation arrays in Lifefire City, allowing one to travel to and from the various regions. The one in the Jialan Emperor Palace directly led to the Lifefire region. After exiting, the group of them sped towards a certain direction. Naturally, they were heading in the direction of the Lifefire Palace. As one of the most authoritative places in the lifelong realm, the Lifefire Palace was like a heavenly castle, towering above the earth, piercing through the clouds. Looking up from below, this heavenly castle was incomparably majestic. In addition, the surroundings were shimmering with crimson fiery light as well as traces of dark destructive light, causing this Lifefire Palace to exude an incomparably terrifying might. It was rumored that there was a supreme grand formation beneath the Lifefire Palace. The Lifefire Grand Formation had the power to destroy the heavens and earth. If someone invaded the Lifefire Palace and activated the Lifefire Grand Formation, the entire Lifefire Palace would be engulfed in flames. However, no one had ever seen the scene of the Grand Formation being activated before. In the lifelong realm, who would dare to invade the Lifefire Palace, one of the 9 world palaces under the lifelong realm lord? At the entrance of the Lifefire Palace, there was a flight of 10,000 meters, ascending step by step like they were on a pilgrimage. The palace entrance was incomparably imposing, and there were experts guarding it. The guards were all immortal kings. When they saw Qin Wentian and the others arriving, they all bowed and greeted Protector Qin. Protector Qin was none other than the peak stage immortal Emperor Protector. As a protector of the Lifefire Palace, his status was extremely high and he was someone who stood by the Lifefire Palace's side. There was no need for him to report to the Lifefire Palace if he wanted to bring people in. The group of them entered the depths of the Lifefire Palace and came to a majestic ancient hall. Outside the hall, there was actually a group of immortal emperors guarding it. The palace lord is currently waiting for Protector Qin in the Great Hall. That immortal emperor nodded to Protector Qin. Emichim. Protector Qin glanced at everyone. Let's enter. As they spoke, the group of them entered the ancient hall. Within the ancient hall, there were several experts present, but none of them exuded an imposing aura. They simply stood there casually, with the exception of a figure in the lead. This figure was clad in black robes and had a medium build. His features were ordinary as well, but his eyes were filled with spirit. He was currently chatting casually with the others in the great hall, and upon seeing them entering, his gaze swept over them. With just a single glance, Qin Wentian felt as though a pair of terrifying eyes could pierce through him with a single glance. I pay my respects to the palace lord. Protector Qin bowed. Jialan pays my respects to the palace lord. Although the Jialan monarch already hated the Lifefire Empyrean in his heart, he didn't dare to show the slightest bit of disrespect in front of the Lifefire Empyrean. He still bowed respectfully. Dark North pays my respects to the palace lord. Princess Kitamura and the others also paid their respects. The Lifefire Empyrean waved his hand and smiled. Protector Qin has worked hard on this trip. This is the duty of this subordinate. Protector Qin calmly spoke. Palace Lord, I've already brought everyone here. Other than those who resisted and were killed, the other bandits are all here. Roar! A low-sounding roar rang out from the prison behind him. The evil emperor's eyes were sinister to the extreme as he stared at the Lifefire Empyrean. Back then, the Lifefire Empyrean was one of the 2 palace lords who encircled and killed the Night Empyrean. Evil Emperor, the Night Empyrean has already died for many years. You have been a bandit for so long, but I didn't expect you to still be so restless. The Lifefire Empyrean smiled at the evil emperor. as though he didn't care about the existence of a peak-stage demon emperor at all. I heard from Protector Chen that the evil emperor is willing to submit to me. Is this true? The Livefire Empyrean asked again. He naturally wouldn't say that he was the one who initiated this. After all, the Jialan monarch was still here. Although there were some things that everyone had a tacit understanding about, he still had to put on a good show on the surface. Qin Wentian turned and stared at the evil emperor. That pair of demonic eyes of the evil emperor flashed with a hint of struggle. The evil emperor seemed to have sensed Qin Wentian's gaze, and also glanced over. He exchanged glances with Qin Wentian as he steeled his heart and made up his mind. Even if he had to suffer humiliation, he had to accept it. He had to wait. Even if there was no chance, he had to wait for one. Yi Qinyu was still in the hands of the evil emperor. He couldn't allow them to die for nothing. Really? The evil emperor closed his eyes, as though he was extremely unwilling. The Livefire Empyrean naturally understood his reluctance, but he didn't care. What he wanted was a conclusion. He naturally understood that the evil emperor and the others wouldn't truly submit to him, but he didn't need the evil emperor to do so either. He only needed them to be useful to him. What about you guys? The Livefire Empyrean glanced at the others in the prison. Everyone nodded, feeling extremely unwilling to submit. Protector Chen, release them. The Livefire Empyrean waved his hand. Protector Chen directly walked up and kept the treasures that imprisoned them, releasing the evil emperor and the others from the prison. Palace Lord. At this moment, the Jialan monarch spoke. He stared at the Livefire Empyrean and spoke. They killed my loved ones and children. I hope Palace Lord can retract your order and kill these heinous bandits to serve as a warning to others, shocking the other bandits. The Livefire Empyrean glanced at the Jialan monarch and smiled. Jialan, I know your mood isn't good. However, there are many bandits in my Livefire Palace, and this time around, your side suffered heavy losses. My Livefire Palace is severely lacking capable people. Now that these bandits are willing to repent, we will naturally give them a chance to redeem themselves. Palace Lord, if even bandits like this can submit, wouldn't the hearts of your subordinates be bitterly disappointed? The other monarchs and subordinates of the other Livefire Empyrean would also be bitterly disappointed. The Jialan monarch bowed. Impudent. A peak-stage immortal emperor beside the Livefire Empyrean angrily berated. He stared at the Jialan monarch. Jialan, you dare to speak to the palace lord like this? Are you trying to offend your superiors? Your subordinate doesn't dare. The Jialan monarch still lowered his head. The Livefire Empyrean stared at the Jialan monarch as he slowly spoke. Jialan, from your words, it seems like you have a great prejudice against this seat. This voice was incomparably calm, yet it caused the Jialan monarch to feel a chill. He lowered his head even more. Your subordinate doesn't dare. This seat knows that your losses this time around are heavy and you lost your loved ones. I can understand you and hence, I didn't punish you. However, don't forget who you are. As one of the 9 monarchs, 2 of your main mines were plundered by bandits. This is simply tyrannical, and you, a monarch, don't even have the slightest bit of strength. You still need this seat to send people to cooperate with you. This seat is very disappointed in your ability. The Livefire Empyrean coldly spoke, his words causing the Jialan monarch's heart to tremble. This group of bandits are much more capable than you. The Livefire Empyrean spoke again, causing the Jialan monarch's heart to sink to the freezing point. His countenance turned pale as he felt agony in his heart. He knew that the Livefire Empyrean wouldn't change his mind because of his words. The people in the Great Hall all stared at the Jialan monarch with mockery in their eyes. They naturally knew why the Livefire Empyrean would do this. The other monarchs weren't like the Jialan monarch, who had a powerful clan behind him and dared to oppose the Livefire Empyrean. How could the Livefire Empyrean tolerate them? Qin Wentian. At this moment, the Livefire Empyrean no longer looked at the Jialan monarch. He directly stared at Qin Wentian. Qin Wentian inclined his head and stared at the Livefire Empyrean. After that, the Livefire Empyrean stood up from his seat and walked down. He stared at Qin Wentian and smiled. I long knew that your relationship with Yuhuang isn't bad and you have such talent. This seat truly admires you. Although you are a bandit, from what I understand, you were forced by the daughter of the Jialan monarch, Jialan Mingyue, to become a miner. You originally had no choice but to do so. Speaking of which, this can't be blamed on you. Since you are willing to turn over a new leaf and submit to this seat, you can directly tell me what position you want. The Jialan monarch's body trembled violently as he involuntarily clenched his fists. You're tuning in to the Li Mei's Wuxia Whispers YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support, and don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.